Chapter 301 Decide. Scene changed. Naruto once again came to the familiar demonic illusion space, with the huge pair of Mangekyo Sharingan above his head, staring at himself coldly, while the surrounding space was constantly flying crows and bloody Yuhi. Itachi, Yudu has no effect on me now, Naruto said lightly. The figure of Itachi slowly appeared in front of Naruto, and the swirling crows around him also stopped in the space. I know you can crack my moonlight, Itachi said lightly. Then you still do it. Itachi was silent for a while, then suddenly said, Actually, I have something to tell you, it's inconvenient to be outside. Naruto frowned slightly. It seems that you were discovered by my Anbu on purpose today. Did you come to me on purpose? You are really smart. You deserve to be a Hokage at such an age. Itachi's eternal ice cube couldn't help but flash a consoling smile. Naruto just smiled lightly and asked, If you have anything, just tell me. I also have something to discuss with you. Itachi was stunned for a moment, then immediately said, Originally I wanted to give you a portion of my power, but with your current achievements, I am afraid that this power is no longer needed. It seems that my role has ended here, and I can only pass it on. Let me give you some news about Akatsuki. Naruto looked at him quietly, waiting for him to speak. After coming out of Ueju's world, the two of them had finished their negotiation. A rare smile appeared on Itachi's face, and he said slowly, It seems that handing Zuiyu to you is the right choice. Naruto frowned slightly. Are you really going to do that? Itachi nodded slightly. Okay, no more to say, someone is coming. He suddenly hand-sealed with both hands and sprayed a Kaden, fire-style, ninjutsu at Naruto. Kaden, fire-style, Phoenix Sage fire technique. Countless small fireballs flew towards the space where Naruto was. Naruto stretched out his hand and gave a slight hand seal, and a wall of water rose out of thin air, blocking him. The fire and water collided, causing a thick fog to erupt. When the surroundings became quiet again, there was no one in front of Naruto. He stood there quietly, frowning slightly in thought. Itachi talked a lot with himself in the Yudu space just now, talking about his brother-sister relationship with Zuiyu when he was a child, and explaining everything he did to protect Zuiyu, but he didn't say that he was actually a spy sent by the village. He told Naruto about this, but chose to bear it all alone. He also told Naruto all the information about the Akatsuki members, and told him his doubts about the masked man. I hope Naruto will be more careful in the future. As a traveler, Naruto is of course clear about these things, even more than Itachi himself, so he just nodded and pretended to understand. As for other things, Itachi didn't say much, just warned Naruto to protect Sasuke, because if there is no accident, both sides will be in a state of full-scale combat, and the next time they meet will be the real enemy. After Itachi finished speaking, Naruto also put forward his own ideas. He hoped that Itachi could return to Konoha in an upright manner to assist him. But, for some reason, Itachi did not agree, although he knew that with Naruto's assurance, returning to Konoha would not be a problem, but killing his parents and his clan with his own hands cannot be eliminated. Even if it is his contribution to the peace of the village, he cannot erase the guilt in his heart. They are all struggling and suffering, and the only hope in their hearts is that Zuiyu can be safe and happy, and then the peace of the village. And now, Naruto's appearance has made him see the strong future of Konoha village, but he still can't promise Naruto. After all, what he has done is irreversible, and he can no longer return to that village. Naruto also knew that his current body was sick with excessive use of strength, and coupled with the stagnation of his thoughts, his life had come to an end, and he had not much time to survive. It seemed that he had to find a chance to save him. Even for Sasuke, Naruto had to find a way to save Itachi's life. Naruto thought to himself. Of course, he didn't know that Saiyu was determined to kill Itachi at this time. Hokage's office after a good night's sleep, when Tsunade and Shizune had already arrived. Naruto told the two about what happened with Itachi last night. Tsunade didn't know what Itachi did. Although she was the fifth Hokage, she was not told the secrets of the previous generation in the village. After all, these things it's not honorable, the upper class of the older generation doesn't want the next generation to know. Therefore, after learning of Itachi's contribution, Tsunade immediately agreed with Naruto's proposal to rescue him, and called Sayu over to tell her about Itachi to Akatsuki. After learning all this, Zuiyu couldn't help but froze in place. She didn't expect her brother to do all these things for herself and the village, and she couldn't imagine how much torment her brother endured for this. At this moment, in her heart it's so complicated. But at the same time, it is also full of doubts. Why did my brother do this? Tsunade was also unaware of such a question. Feeling the oppressive atmosphere in the room, Naruto sighed slightly and opened his mouth. After all, he still didn't tell Zuiyu what he knew about the dark side of the village. He didn't want her to know these dark things. It was enough for him to know them. Naruto, I must go and ask him. Why did he do this? There must be something else in it. After a while, Zuiyu finally raised her head and said firmly. Naruto sighed slightly. Zuiyu, can I handle this matter? Your brother, I will definitely save him. Hearing Naruto's gentle voice, Zuiyu's dull mood slightly improved, but she still shook her head firmly. Naruto, I want to solve this problem myself. I can't always rely on your strength. There are some things I have to face, so Naruto, let me handle it myself this time. Looking at Zuiyu's firm eyes, Naruto sighed slightly, and finally nodded, but he was still a little uneasy in his heart. At that time, he had to watch from the side. The simple Zuiyu was eager to die. In front of Itachi, he might actually do something like the original. Things on the dark side always make people feel depressed. Naruto doesn't like this feeling, even though Danzo has already been killed by himself, even though there is no right or wrong in all this, there are only reasons for the survival of the strong. Naruto hopes that Zuiyu can slowly understand this principle in the future. Chapter 302 Dual Kyuubi, 9 Tails. There are still 2 days before the Five Shadows Conference. During these 2 days, the leaders of other villages have already rushed to Kumogakure village one after another. Only Naruto is not in a hurry. He who has the technique of Hiraishin has already given it to Yugito Hiraishin Kanai, so it is enough to teleport directly at that time. In the past 2 days, in addition to arranging a series of things to be discussed in detail at the Five Shadows Conference, what Naruto has to do is to step up and improve his strength. After all, during the Fourth World War, there was not so much time for himself. Go and practice with peace of mind. After talking to everyone, Naruto appeared in Miyamu Yamanaka as a Hiraishin, intending to spend 2 days of cultivation here. Appeared in Myogi Yamanaka, the toads jumped over. Yo, Naruto, I haven't seen you for a long time. How's it going? Last time I heard that you disappeared for a while, where are you going? Toad Boss said leisurely, smoking a cigarette. Naruto raised his head and smiled slightly. Yes, it's been a long time. Everyone, I want to meet the big toad immortal. Squinting at Naruto, he made Naruto wait for a long time before he suddenly said tremblingly, Little Naruto, you have changed a lot. Naruto was shocked, looked at him and said, Immortal Big Toad, I'm here to show you this power. He slowly closed his eyes, his consciousness sank slightly, and the next moment, countless golden rays of light suddenly shone on his body. Immortal Big Toad's half-squinted old eyes suddenly widened, and he said in a trembling voice, This power is. Naruto absorbed the power of nature's source and entered the natural mode. He looked at the stunned great toad immortal and the immortals Fukasaku and Shima beside him and asked, It's this power, Kyuubi, 9 Tails once said. This is the power of the source of nature. I think you should know something about the great toad immortal. Quote. These runes. At this time, the 2 immortals Fukasaku and Shima also jumped down, came to Naruto's side and stared carefully at the black runes that appeared on his golden body, with serious expressions. I think there must be some secrets in these runes, maybe the Big Toad Fairy will know some. At this time, Immortal Big Toad couldn't calm down anymore. He also climbed down from the high seat, lowered his head, and carefully looked at Naruto's whole body. After a while, the great toad Immortal Talent said, "This seems to be a seal, but these seals are not the same as some of the current seals. It is a very ancient seal, it seems. I have seen it in a book." Quote. "Oh, what book?" Naruto's eyes lit up. "I seem to have seen it in the Six Paths Fairy's notes thousands of years ago." The big toad fairy recalled, "But now I can't remember these things." When Naruto heard this, he couldn't help but move. Six Paths Immortal's notes. He didn't think this thing would still be spread around the world. It's just that he was reminded by the words of Immortal Big Toad. Since these seal runes are related to Six Paths, could it be a mystery set up by Immortal Six Paths? It's just that these mysteries must be solved by oneself. It's impossible for Naruto to know how powerful the Six Paths are, but just from his ability to differentiate 10 tails into 9-tailed beasts, he is far inferior to him now. With great doubts, Naruto said goodbye to several immortals and came to an open space in Mount Myoboku to sit down and practice, while looking at the seals on his body and studying. But after a long time, he still has no clue. Although he has mastered a lot of knowledge about sealing, he still knows nothing about this ancient thing. Since he can't figure it out, Naruto will no longer continue to struggle. The development of this power cannot be rushed. At present, the only way to make rapid progress is to absorb the Kyuubi, 9 tails power in the body. Do what you think of, there is no one to protect the Dharma, and no one is needed to protect the Dharma. Naruto sinks into his mind, and he has come to the space of his own consciousness, the dark cell where Kyuubi, 9 tails, is sealed. "Are you finally here? I've been waiting for you for a long time." The voice of Kyuubi, 9 tails, suddenly came from behind the big iron gate. Naruto smiled lightly. "Looks like you're ready." "Hee, do you still need my power now?" "Of course." Naruto walked towards him. Roar. Kyuubi, 9 tails, suddenly roared, and a surging chakra burst out from behind the iron gate. Naruto didn't move, and his footsteps were still steady. The golden light on his body became more and more intense, covering almost the entire space. Shouting, Kyuubi, 9 tails, aura suddenly weakened. His lantern-like red pupils stared at Naruto. "Boy, this old man will never let you take away your power." "Oh, then why do you look a little guilty now?" Facing Kyuubi, 9 tails' tough mouth, Naruto mercilessly exposed the sarcasm. "Humph." Kyuubi, 9 tails, hummed angrily. "You can try." Naruto nodded. "I know you won't be convinced if you don't beat you, do you?" "Humph. Arrogance." Naruto smiled faintly. His body slowly rose into the air. He pulled down the sealing spell on the big iron gate, then pulled off his clothes again, spread his 5 fingers and pressed them against his abdomen. Chakra moved, his palms slightly moved. Turn. Seal of 4 elephants and the seal of 8 trigrams have both been unlocked. For Naruto, who has long been familiar with these sealing techniques, it is simply a piece of cake, and he does not need the keys left over from 4 generations. Untie. Naruto let out a low shout, and the seals on the iron gate dissipated one after another. Finally, when all the seals were undone, Kyuubi, 9 tails, couldn't wait to slam it towards Naruto. Naruto's foot on the big iron gate that was bounced open, the figure has bounced back like an arrow. He landed on the ground. Naruto looked up at Kyuubi, 9 tails, who was staring at him not far away, and said with a smile, "It seems that you have been holding back for too long, and you can't help but want to fight. Bastard. Anyone who has been locked up for so long will want to vent." A violent gust of wind slapped Naruto. There was also a hint of excitement in Naruto's eyes. It had been a long time since he had met an opponent who could play happily. Ever since he mastered Hiraishin and Mokuten, wood style, he was almost crushed. Now, the Kyuubi, 9 tails, in front of him happens to be his perfect training partner. Chapter 303 Fight. Boom. Suddenly, a strong air wave erupted in the space, and the ground was shattered by the layers of Kyuubi, 9 tails. Naruto's figure flashed quickly, easily dodging his violent attack. Kyuubi, 9 tails' huge lantern-like pupils stared straight at Naruto's body, which was constantly flashing, but Naruto's moving speed was so fast that Kyuubi, Ninetales, felt a little bit unable to keep up. Suddenly, at the moment when Kyuubi, Ninetales, bowed his head slightly, Naruto slammed his feet, his body shot up like lightning, his hands turned to the sky, and a huge Rasengan suddenly appeared in the palm of his hand, with a full diameter. There are dozens of meters. Feet of blue light illuminated the entire space, and a gust of wind was swept up. When Kyuubi, Ninetales, looked up, Naruto had already swooped down towards him with a huge Rasengan. Eat me, Kyuubi, Ninetales. Rasengan slammed down hard, however, Kyuubi, Ninetales, was not slow to react at all. The moment Naruto's attack reached him, the 9 huge tails behind him suddenly blocked in front of him. Boom! The huge Rasengan smashed hard on the 9 tails of Kyuubi, Ninetales, and there was a loud noise between the two, followed by the strong wind pressure and spiral caused by Naruto's Rasengan. A scene of dynamism flying everywhere. Even though Kyuubi, Ninetales, was extremely powerful, being hit by this giant Rasengan, his body was involuntarily pushed away, and a long scratch was drawn on the ground. Humph! Don't be too arrogant, kid. When Rasengan's power was blocked, Kyuubi, Ninetales, shook the 9 big tails slightly, grunted angrily, and opened his mouth to shoot an energy bullet at Naruto. Naruto had just landed in midair at this time, and when he saw the rapidly approaching energy bullet, his hands suddenly danced into an afterimage. The speed is fast to the ultimate, and the hand seal is completed in an instant. Doden, Earth-style, rock-breaking technique. A huge rock about 10 meters in diameter suddenly fell in midair, just in front of Naruto, and hit the rapidly approaching Kyuubi, Ninetales, energy cannon. Boom! With a loud bang, the power of the energy cannon was cancelled, but the huge rock also exploded with a bang, turning into rubble scattered all over the sky. Naruto fell to the ground, and suddenly another energy bomb flew towards him. Naruto made a wrong footstep, and his figure flashed, and he avoided the attack of Kyuubi, Ninetales. On the other hand, Kyuubi, Ninetales, kept firing energy shells one after another from his mouth, forcing Naruto to keep dodging for the time being. Suddenly, Naruto's figure suddenly stood still, and at the same time, an energy bomb exploded on him. Under the reflection of the explosion's flame, Kyuubi, Ninetales' pupils became even more red, and the murderous aura and suffocating energy in his eyes all condensed together, as if a volcano that had been suppressed for a long time wanted to fully erupt at this moment. The fire light dissipated, and Naruto stood with one hand in front of him, the palm of his hand was slightly bubbling with green smoke, and he raised his head slightly and looked at Kyuubi, Ninetales, coldly. Kyuubi, Ninetales, flashed a hint of surprise in his eyes. He didn't expect his energy cannon to be blocked by his bare hands. It seems that this guy's chakra strength is no worse than his own. Roar! Boy, then take my trick. Kyuubi, Ninetales, suddenly raised his head, opened his mouth, and an extremely powerful and heavy chakra formed in his mouth. The chakra gathered more and more, and in the end, it had turned into a thick black, jet-black chakra energy bomb, which gave people a heavy feeling just by seeing it. The corner of Naruto's mouth twitched slightly. Tailed beast bomb. The power is too great, but the speed is slow. Naruto hand seal with both hands. Before Kyuubi, Ninetales, can launch the tailed beast bomb, he snorted. The art of Mokuden, wood style. Quote. An instant, the ground under Kyuubi, Ninetales, drilled into countless huge tree stems, and quickly climbed his entire body along his limbs. Receive. The body of Kyuubi, Ninetales, was suddenly bound up by the whole body of the suddenly tightened stem. Roar! A roar, the tailed beast bomb from Kyuubi, Ninetales' mouth flew into the sky, and his body like a hill fell to the ground. Damn Mokuden, wood style. Kyuubi, Ninetales, gleamed fiercely in his eyes, and when he was interrupted to attack, Jong Kiba's angry claws snapped off the tree stem wrapped around him, one claws shredded. However, the chakra on Naruto seems to be endless. Those Mokuden, wood style, regenerates endlessly. Even if Kyuubi, Ninetales, bites off half, the remaining half will be born again. Continue. Wrapped around him, not letting him have the slightest chance to breathe. Hoo hoo hoo. Kyuubi, Ninetales, roared furiously. Although these tree stems are not very strong, if they are accidentally entangled in their soft underbelly, even if their chakra is strong, it will be difficult to break free, so he must constantly prevent these tree stems. Tangle your joints. Get out of the way, old man. Kyuubi, Ninetales, roared abruptly, and an extremely strong chakra burst out of his body, instantly forcing Naruto's Mokuden, wood style, to move. Just in this neutral position, Kyuubi, Ninetales, stomped under his feet, and suddenly a turbulent chakra drilled directly from the ground to where Naruto was. Naruto had already noticed the swift chakra, and his body flicked to the side, but it also created a neutral block in the control of Mokuden, wood style. Kyuubi, Ninetales, seized the opportunity and immediately stepped back. Leap out. Call. A big breath, Kyuubi, Ninetales, calmed down the surging chakra in his body and looked at Naruto with a solemn expression. In addition to the original Hokage Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, Naruto is definitely the second formidable enemy he has encountered, and compared to those two people, Naruto's development potential is even stronger. Just now, he already has a kind of dangerous situation. Kid, I admit that you are very powerful, but if you want me to humiliately contribute your strength, you are too beautiful. Kyuubi, Ninetales, shouted at him. Naruto smiled. Kyuubi, Ninetales, the weak always serve the strong. You have been in my body for so long, you have to contribute a little. Hearing this, Kyuubi, Ninetales, roared angrily, jumped up high, and flew directly towards the place where Naruto was. At the same time, the 9 giant tails behind him swayed in front of him, facing down towards Naruto. Naruto slammed down hard. Under the sudden increase of Kyuubi, Ninetales' speed, Naruto could hardly dodge, but he was not worried. He flicked his hand and shot up a handful of Hiraishin Kunai, and the next moment, it was the 9 huge tails. When it fell, the figure turned into a golden light and disappeared into the space. Boom! The ground was severely smashed into the sun, forming a huge cobweb crack, and a wave of air swept around and scattered around. Kyuubi, Ninetales, stared and watched, looking for Naruto's figure. However, above his head, a loud humming sound filled the air. Chapter 304 Doden, Earth-Style Rasengan. Looking up, Kyuubi, Ninetales, saw an energy in the form of a violently spinning shuriken in his eyes, and the buzzing sound was harsh and shrill. What a fast speed! Damn it! Kyuubi, Ninetales, knew that the power of this Rasenshuriken was astonishing. Seeing this scene, he knew something was wrong. He scolded and jumped back suddenly. However, how could Naruto's speed be able to dodge him? Just as he had just jumped halfway, the mighty Rasenshuriken had already hit him hard. Buzzing. The energy exploded and formed an extremely violent storm. Countless fine wind blades continuously cut everything within the range. Kyuubi, Ninetales' body was completely wrapped by these energy wind blades, roaring in pain. Damn! Roar! Kyuubi, Ninetales' body was slammed into the air by this energy, and a long ravine broke out on the ground, extending for 100 meters before it stopped. Naruto walked towards him and said slowly, Kyuubi, Ninetales, you are no longer my opponent now. Who said that? How could the old man lose to you, this kid? Don't think it's great to have a little skill. Kyuubi, Ninetales, was furious. He struggled to stand up, but even with his amazing resilience, the body and the almost infinite chakra, after being battered by Futon Wind-style Rasenshuriken, also struggled to get better in a short period of time. Therefore, he could only watch Naruto walk in front of him. Looking at this smiling, young but outrageously strong guy, Kyuubi, Ninetales, suddenly felt a sense of invincibility in his heart. Although he kept his mouth tight, he had to admit that even if he was a scout, no matter how strong Carrot is, it can't resist so many ninjutsu. Kyuubi, Ninetales, your power is so powerful, if it doesn't play a role, I am really disqualified as a human Jinchuriki column power. Naruto smiled lightly, so, I can give you 2 options. Kyuubi, Ninetales, stared at Naruto angrily. Don't look at me like that. I'm planning to have a good discussion with you. Naruto spread his hands. At this moment, Kyuubi, Ninetales, suddenly laughed wildly. opened his mouth and took a bite towards Naruto. Boom! Ground was cracked open by Kyuubi's Nine-Tails mouth, and Naruto was attacked. Fortunately, he instantly reacted and jumped to the top of his head with a teleportation technique, grinning. "It's a sneak attack, isn't it? Is it an admission of failure?" Kyuubi Nine-Tails stared at him with unwillingness in his eyes, his head swayed violently, and Naruto flew out. At the same time, he opened his hideous mouth, and a black energy ball suddenly gathered in his mouth. Naruto stepped back, and he couldn't help shaking his head and smiling while he was in the air. This Kyuubi Nine-Tails' resilience is really amazingly strong. At the time of speaking, he was already able to fight back and attack, and it seemed that he would not give in without some violence. Tailed Beast Bomb that was getting bigger and bigger. Naruto's face was full of excited fighting intent. "If that's the case, then I'll try that technique." Naruto suddenly stretched out his palms, and a strong chakra energy slowly gathered in the palms. Is this technique again? Kyuubi Nine-Tails was secretly disdainful when he saw this. The Rasengan series did not do him much damage. As the head of the nine-tailed beasts, Kyuubi Nine-Tails' own defensive power and chakra strength were all the same. Other tailed beasts can't compare. Even Naruto's futon, wind-style Rasenshuriken can't do much damage to him. However, Naruto did not use futon, wind-style, or Suiten, water-style, this time, but Doten, earth-style. Inject the earth attribute into Rasengan to form a pinnacle of earth ninjutsu. Earth attribute chakra is the heaviest energy among chakras. It is very difficult to add earth attribute to Rasengan's ultimate ninjutsu. Since Naruto learned about the change of the earth attribute, he has been trying to study it, but he has not been able to succeed before. But when he realized the power of nature's source and entered the natural mode, he has solved this problem. The palms, the rapidly spinning Rasengan suddenly turned from blue light to khaki, and slowly turned dark brown again. At the same time, Rasengan is getting bigger and bigger. Chakra continued to input. In natural mode, Naruto's chakra is stronger, and after the earth attribute changes, it merges into Rasengan, and the pressure released is no less than Kyuubi Nine-Tails' mouth. That giant-tailed beast bomb. This kid. Kyuubi Nine-Tails was secretly shocked. Except for tailed beast bomb of the human Jinchuriki, column force, he had never seen any ninja that could release and control such a strong energy. Finally, just when the tailed beast bomb in the mouth of Kyuubi Nine-Tails spit out at the place where Naruto was, Naruto has also completed his art. I saw Naruto's palms facing the sky, holding a chakra ball with a diameter of more than 2 meters. The surface of the chakra ball looks dark and smooth, but the chakra energy contained in it is extremely heavy and powerful. Sure enough, this Rasengan with the earth attribute is too heavy, and it is difficult to move flexibly with it, but it is very suitable for dealing with Kyuubi Nine-Tails. With one wave, the dark Yuhi-colored energy ball flew towards the tailed beast bomb of Kyuubi Nine-Tails with a diameter of 4 or 5 meters. 2 energy balls, one small and one large, are approaching each other at an astonishing speed. Air seemed to freeze. Kyuubi Nine-Tails and Naruto both watched the scene where the two were about to meet. Finally, there was a muffled sound, and the next moment the 2 energy balls were already touching. A small sonic boom seemed to pass through the space to the ears of Naruto and Kyuubi Nine-Tails. Sizzle. The 2 energy balls did not explode suddenly, but squeezed each other for 2 seconds before they could not bear the impact of each other, and burst with a bang. It turned into a dazzling white light to illuminate all around. From the initial contact to the moment when it suddenly exploded, as if there was no time limit, it suddenly exploded like that, and the incomparably strong energy enveloped both Naruto and Kyuubi Nine-Tails. Even Naruto never thought that these 2 energies could burst out with such a powerful force. Even the entire consciousness space shook slightly at this moment. After a long time, the scene gradually calmed down, and at this time, the consciousness space had fallen into complete darkness, and it seemed that only Naruto and Kyuubi Nine-Tails existed in this dark space. This power is still stronger than tailed beast bomb. Naruto couldn't help sighing. looking at Kyubi, Ninetales, who was staring at him in shock. Chapter 305 Uzumaki Kina. If that's the case, then the old man will make another big one. After the shock, Kyubi, Ninetales, finally used all his strength, only to see him raise his head again and gathered his entire body of chakra to form a tens of meters in diameter. The tailed beast bomb, the powerful energy surprised Naruto when he saw it. However, after being stunned for a moment, Naruto laughed. Kyubi, Ninetales, I won't give you that much time. And, I'm tired of playing too. He finished speaking, he quickly hand-sealed his hands, the chakra on his body gushed out, and an incomparably huge towering tree rose from the foot of Kyubi, Ninetales, out of thin air. There are dozens of meters, directly surrounding Kyubi, Ninetales, and wrapping him whole. The next moment, Naruto clasped his hands together suddenly. Mokuden, wood style, tree bind flourishing burial. Boom. The thick stem twisted directly inward, wrapped around Kyubi, Ninetales' body all the way around his neck, and then tightened it fiercely. Being entangled by such a thick stem, Kyubi, Ninetales, who was gathering energy, was unable to attack back, and when he wanted to resist, he found that his whole body was tightly bound, even if it was his, even the mighty force cannot break free. And after the stem suddenly tightened, Kyubi, Ninetales' body was suspended by the sudden swell of the stem, tied high and hung in the air, and the chakra he condensed lost all the power to follow. Go away. Let it go, old man. But, damn, Kyubi, Ninetales, struggled, but the more he struggled, the tighter the stem tightened, making him breathless, a feeling of, I didn't expect this kid's Mokuden, wood style, to have reached this level, too strong. Compared to the original generation, it is not worse at all. It turns out that he has been playing tricks on himself. He can use this trick to kill himself, but he still deliberately fights with himself. Is this a humiliation to himself? Hateful. The more Kyubi, Ninetales, thought about it, the more angry he became. His eyes were bloodshot, and he stared at Naruto with a ghastly expression, as if he was going to eat him whole. Seeing that Kyubi, Ninetales, had nothing to do with him, Naruto laughed, he jumped, and suddenly came to Kyubi, Ninetales, standing in front of his two pairs of red yuhi between his pupils. He looked at him and said, now, I'll give you a chance to make a choice. What choice? Kyubi, Ninetales, glared at him with difficulty. Naruto smiled lightly. I know it's not good for you to be sealed and lose your freedom. You have powerful power, but because you were an alien, you were rejected and used by humans, and all of this is causing you to hate the world. The reason for this, you have been claiming to be a collection of hatred. I think this is just to express your dissatisfaction with all this, is very resentful. What are you trying to say? Kyubi, Ninetales, couldn't help but stunned when he heard Naruto's words. He was right. He had been sealed, used, and abused like a tool for a long time. People's hostility, fear, all this is not what he wants, but all this is helpless. The six paths immortals created themselves. What a wonderful time they had with other tailed beasts, but it is a pity that all these no longer exist, and only infinite hatred is left in their hearts. Seeing the tyranny in Kyubi, Ninetales' eyes slowly dissipating, Naruto said indifferently, from now on, I can give you freedom. I won't let anyone come to attack you, and you have to do it. Yes, to assist me in the days to come. Do you agree? What? Can you set me free? Kyubi, Ninetales, startled. Well, after all, I don't want another guy living in my body. Naruto said, of course, if you don't believe me, then I'll have to assimilate you. You should know that I have it now. This ability. When Kyubi, Ninetales, heard this, he wanted to get angry and say something harsh, but when he thought that the power of the natural source he merged was the foundation of all power, even if he was a nine-tailed beast, he could not compete with it. You can know that he is so easily trapped by him. How? Do you choose the former or the latter? Naruto looked at him with a smile. I originally wanted to rob you of your power, but now I change my mind. If you don't agree, then no wonder I agree. Kyubi, Ninetales, glared at him angrily. Although he was very unhappy with his arrogance, he also knew that Naruto's strength became stronger and stronger, and the more he appeared. He is getting weaker and weaker. If he continues to be his enemy, I am afraid that he will really have no good end. After living for thousands of years, if you can't see this clearly, then it's a waste of life. So, Kyuubi Ninetales resolutely agreed. Well done. At this moment, a crisp voice suddenly came from behind Naruto. Naruto and Kyuubi Ninetales looked over at once. He saw a Yuhi-haired beauty standing slim behind Naruto, with a shallow smile on her face. Uzumaki Kina. Kyuubi Ninetales hated his predecessor, Jinchuriki Column, so much that he couldn't help roaring when he saw her. Hee, Kyuubi Ninetales, you are still so irritable. Uzumaki smiled lightly, came to Naruto and patted him on the shoulder, and asked, do you know who I am? Of course Naruto knew that she was his cheap mother, and what appeared here was just her chakra. He couldn't help but looked her up and down, Yuhi-colored long hair hanging down to his waist, and a delicate face. With a shallow smile on her face, she is slender, and her whole body exudes the brilliance of motherhood. She let Naruto look at her generously, and when she saw the astonishing look in his eyes, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Did you have so many girls in the past? Hearing this, Naruto realized that his gaze was a bit wrong. He smiled, and he said slightly embarrassedly, I learned from the fourth Hokage that you are my mother. I didn't expect you to be so beautiful. Naruto panicked. Minato didn't tell him about China. All this was a plot he knew for a long time, but at this time he had to say it. It was a white lie. Yuhi dizzy flashed across Kinai's face. It feels really good to be praised by my son. Naruto smiled slightly. Mom, you are really beautiful, especially this Yuhi hair. He suddenly remembered Karen, who is also from the Uzumaki clan, and also has long Yuhi-colored hair. Chennai was a little embarrassed by the praise, rubbed his head and giggled. Besides Minato, you are the first boy to praise me for my beautiful hair. Kyuubi Ninetales is out. Seeing these two people, Jinchuriki Column, who were chatting hotly, Kyuubi Ninetales couldn't help shouting, hey, can you put the old things aside for now? Let me go and talk about it first. Kina glared at Kyuubi Ninetales and frowned. Son, it seems that this guy's business needs to be settled first. Naruto nodded slightly, turned to Kyuubi Ninetales and said, since you have agreed, I will start the technique of pulling you away now. But after the tailed beast is pulled away, it should do a lot of damage to your body, right? Although our Uzumaki clan's body vitality is very strong, but after Kyuubi Ninetales was pulled away, Chennai frowned on the side. I think it's better to grab the power of this restless guy. Kina, you bastard. Kyuubi Ninetales couldn't help cursing. Naruto frowned. Shut up Kyuubi Ninetales, she's my mom now, keep her mouth clean. When Kyuubi Ninetales heard it, he was gone. Kina pursed her lips and smiled softly as she looked at Naruto and said, my son is really considerate to me, he really looks like Minato. Naruto smiled lightly. I have a way to get out of Kyuubi Ninetales safely, you don't have to worry. Kina was stunned. Okay, I'm going out first, see you later. Naruto waved his hand and flew out of his consciousness. In reality, Naruto, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, slowly opened his eyes, a flash of light flashed in his eyes, and murmured, Kyuubi Ninetales, this time I have given you enough trust. I hope that after letting you out, don't let me down, otherwise. Taking off his imperial robe, Naruto lifted his black vest and looked down at the seal on his abdominal muscles. Biting Kiba slightly, Naruto stretched out his hand to form a series of complicated handprints. Then, he stretched out his hand and pressed it lightly on his abdomen, groaned in his throat, and slowly lay down on the ground. I hope my pain will not be in vain. Naruto lay flat on the ground, and a hot force suddenly rose from his abdomen, constantly impacting his body. Kyuubi Ninetales in the body was ecstatic. The seal has completely disappeared. This guy, he is going to let the old man out. Kyuubi Ninetales, if you dare to hurt my son after going out, I will never let you go. Kinai, it depends on the old man's mood. QB Ninetales laughed. Kina couldn't help frowning, furious. Outside, Naruto's abdomen has bulged a black chakra energy high, and the pain caused by this abnormally overbearing energy rushing through his body to the outside world is far beyond imagination, and Naruto can't help groaning in pain. However, his body was lying motionless on the ground at this time, trying his best to hold back the pain and maintaining his sanity. Moreover, when QB Ninetales broke through his body, he was constantly absorbing the life force from the outside world, nourishing his body and reducing the pain. QB Ninetales slammed into the shackles of Naruto's body frantically, and finally, an incomparably huge energy drilled out of Naruto's abdomen and rose into the sky. Naruto clenched Kiba's teeth tightly, resisting the pain, and at the same time madly absorbing the life force from the outside world, making up for the life energy lost by his body. Roar! A roar, that huge energy finally converged into the image of QB Ninetales, and suddenly, the ground shook, and the entire Mount Myoboku couldn't help shaking. What's going on? This chakra, it's QB Ninetales. Toad Wenta, who was chatting with a few brothers and smoking leisurely, couldn't help but change greatly. No way, how did he get out? Naruto's strength shouldn't let QB Ninetales get out of control. The toads panicked. At this time, Naruto was lying on the ground, breathing heavily. He looked up at QB Ninetales standing proudly in front of him, and said with a smile, "How is it? I fulfilled my promise, now it's your turn." QB Ninetales' huge body stood like a hill in front of Naruto. He first turned his head to look around, took a deep breath, and murmured, "I haven't breathed this fresh air for a long time, this feeling is really wonderful." Looking down at the weak, gasping Naruto, QB Ninetales grinned, "Boy, now is a good chance to kill you." Naruto heard the words, he smiled slightly, "Oh, are you really going to do this? Haha, I saw that you were upset, isn't it just right for me to kill you now?" Naruto pouted, struggling to stand up. The weak look on his face was swept away, and a powerful momentum suddenly erupted from his body, and golden light instantly covered his entire body. Nature mode on. Naruto felt the surging power in his body, and couldn't help but muttered, "Sure enough, after pulling out QB Ninetales, the benefit to me is not a little bit. The chakra that was originally used to suppress QB Ninetales, it has been completely released, and then fused with the power of the natural source of the outside world. It is several times stronger than the original chakra." "Hey, I'm joking with you." QB Ninetales saw that Naruto still had such a powerful power, and his rebellious face suddenly showed a look of surprise, waving his claws again and again to explain, "The old man is not a bad guy, I just made a joke with you, don't take it seriously." Naruto cut his voice, "It seems that you are still not honest enough. If I was really weak just now, would you do it?" Naruto's figure flashed, and the next moment he jumped to QB Ninetales on his head, standing on his head and looking into his eyes from top to bottom. QB Ninetales shook his head and shouted, "Bastard, I am QB Ninetales, the head of the nine-tailed beasts. How can I break my word?" Naruto stared at his red eyes, until he saw that he couldn't take it anymore before he laughed. "QB Ninetales, so you are pretty cute too. I was joking with you just now." "Oh. Asshole." Not far away, Toad Wentai, who had just arrived, was looking at QB Ninetales in surprise. "Hey, Mr. Wen, I guess what I saw." Toad-Jien wiped his eyes and stared at QB Ninetales and Naruto, and called to Toad Wentai beside him. Wentai's pipe also fell from his mouth at this time. No way, QB Ninetales really came out. At this time, QB Ninetales also noticed the figure of Toad Wentai and the others, and his eyes could not help but narrowed slightly. This old stinky toad seems a little familiar. Naruto smiled faintly, and called to the toads who were watching over there, "Mita, come over here, this is QB Ninetales." Chapter 307 Old Acquaintance. Oh, I remembered it. After Toad Wentai picked up his pipe and jumped over with a few other toads, Kyubi Ninetails stared at Wentai for a long time and suddenly called out, "You dead toad it, s the one that was summoned by the 4th generation of Hokage to sit on the head of this old man." Naruto couldn't help but sweat madly. This Kyubi Ninetails really holds grudges. Wentai was startled by Kyubi Ninetails' tone, but when he saw Naruto standing on Kyubi Ninetails' head safe and sound, he was slightly relieved. Fortunately, Naruto was fine. However, Kyubi Ninetails' tone was too arrogant. Although he was still a little unclear about the situation at this time, he would not flinch in the face of Kyubi Ninetails, a former enemy. I saw Wentai took a step forward, took a puff of cigarette and sprayed it on Kyubi Ninetails' face, squinted his eyes and said leisurely, "Oh, I remember, so you were sitting on my butt more than 10 years ago. That stinky fox underneath. Your fox fur feels pretty good." Kyubi Ninetails had a black line, trembling with anger, and the chakra gushing out from his body. "Bastard. This old man is going to tear you apart." Saying that, Kyubi Ninetails rushed towards Toad Bunta without hesitation. Wentai was on guard against him, and when he saw it, he suddenly pulled out his short knife and slashed at Kyubi Ninetails' neck. At the same time, Toad Jien, who was beside him, also took up his weapon and stabbed at him. Boom! Kyubi Ninetails slapped the weapons of the two toads directly with his claws, and the 9 giant tails behind him slammed towards Wentai. Seeing the toad and the fox fighting, Naruto couldn't help but feel a headache. He stretched out his hand and made a mark. A huge tree stem rose from the two in an instant, and a few extremely thick branches stretched out from the stem. It caught them in an instant. "Phew, let me go, Naruto, this old man is going to tear him up." Wen also shouted, "Stinky fox, don't be arrogant to Lao Su. This is Mount Myoboku." Okay, stop arguing, Kyubi Ninetails, I didn't let you out to fight with my partner." Naruto patted his head and said, Your temper is really grumpy enough. If you go on like this, be careful, I will seal you up again." Kyubi Ninetails shuddered when he heard the words, and snorted unwillingly, and then gave up his resistance. He didn't want to be sealed again. Naruto unleashes Mokuden wood style, letting go of Bunta and Kyubi Ninetails, and then jumps off Kyubi Ninetails' head. "Follow me to meet the great Toad Immortal. Kyubi Ninetails, you'll have nowhere to go after you are released, and it's not safe to run around in the ninja world, so you should stay here on Mount Myoboku." Quote. What? Kyubi Ninetails was furious. Naruto turned around and looked at him seriously. "Do you want to be sealed again?" Kyubi Ninetails shook his head. "That's fine, then there will be time for you to play, and the scenery of Mount Myoboku is pleasant, which is also very good." Naruto smiled again. I'll just stay here for now. I hope these stinky toads don't come to mess with me, otherwise I can't guarantee anything." Kyubi Ninetails snorted. "Kyubi Ninetails, no matter how strong you are, our entire Mount Myoboku brothers may not be afraid of you." Wentai cried. "Fuck, with the meager power of you toads, are you worthy of fighting against this old man?" Seeing them quarreling again, Naruto felt helpless. However, at least now Kyubi Ninetails' eyes are no longer full of hatred. Naruto no longer feels any malice from his chakra, but under his own influence, Kyubi Ninetails' power become milder. Xiaoju. When Kyubi Ninetails arrogantly came to the Big Toad Immortal, the Big Toad Immortal suddenly jumped up excitedly, looked at Kyubi Ninetails, and exclaimed, "You actually came out." Quote. Kyubi Ninetails was stunned for a moment. He looked at the old toad in front of him and couldn't help but look suspicious. How do you know the old man's nickname?" "Xiaoju, I not only know your nickname, but also your big name Kurama, which is the name that the 6 Paths Immortal took for you personally." The Big Toad Immortal sat back on the high seat and said with emotion, "When 6 Paths Immortal, I was there when the Paths Fairy named you." Kyubi Ninetails looked startled, and suddenly called out, "Big Toad. Hey, Xiaoju, you finally remember me. We haven't seen each other in 1,000 years. It's a shame you still remember me, but I keep hearing the news that you were sealed. Big Toad, QB Ninetails' voice trembled a little. Hey, Xiaoju, your chakra is getting stronger and stronger, but unfortunately I'm getting old. Immortal Big Toad shook his head and said, it's different from your natural body, I'm too old to go now. Don't move. Naruto and the toads around him were stunned listening to the reminiscence between the Big Toad Fairy and QB Ninetails. Unexpectedly, QB Ninetails still has such a past, and the Great Toad Immortal used to be old acquaintances with QB Ninetails. Big Brother Toad, looking at you still alive, what about the second brother Snake and Big Sister Toad? Naruto. After a day has passed, Naruto still has a cloudy feeling. But if you think about it, he will let you go. The Great Toad Immortal, the Snake Immortal, and the Toad Immortal were once disciples of Six Paths, and QB Ninetails was the product of Six Paths, differentiation into 10 tails, so it is not surprising that they are familiar with each other. QB Ninetails, who was like a monster in his own impression, was embracing the Big Toad Fairy with tears on his face, the corners of his mouth twitched. That night, he sat cross-legged on the top of Mount Myoboku, silently cultivating the power in his body. Releasing QB Ninetails, all the chakras in the body that had suppressed the power of QB Ninetails were also released. Such a huge power, if it is not digested through exercise, can be displayed. Less than a third of the power. At present, the chakra in Naruto's body has become so powerful that he can't believe it. The original chakra is no worse than QB Ninetails in natural mode. Now, after combining this potential power, even QB Ninetails is no longer comparable. In terms of chakra strength, I am afraid it has surpassed the level of the original Hokage. Chapter 308 Conversation in Conscious Space. The night fell, and Naruto sat there motionless on the top of the mountain, as if he was an immobile rock in nature. His body was exuding a faint golden light, and his face was expressionless. In the consciousness space, Naruto's figure appeared in this empty and boundless darkness. I didn't expect this place to become so dark after QB Ninetails left. Naruto murmured softly, looking at the dim space around him. Suddenly, a faint light flashed behind Naruto, and when Naruto turned around, a happy voice came. Great, Naruto, you're all right. It was Uzumaki Kina. Her face was full of surprise at this time, and she quickly rushed over and hugged Naruto's body. Naruto was stunned for a moment, not knowing where to put his hands. QB Ninetails bastard, I'm afraid he will hurt you when he goes out. I'm relieved to see that you're all right. Naruto, you really have grown up. Your shoulders have become as broad as Minato's. That's it. Kina let go of Naruto and patted his shoulder with a relieved smile. Naruto smiled slightly. Thank you, QB Ninetails, he can't hurt me now. Thank you, I'm your mother, it's too outrageous for you to say that and I should be the one who said sorry to you. Kina scratched her head, her face showing an embarrassed cute smile. Huh, Naruto was slightly puzzled. That's it, I originally appeared in your body to help you control the power of QB Ninetails, but now you've taken care of everything by yourself, and I'm useless as a mother. Quote. Naruto smiled and held her shoulders. What's the matter? I'm very happy to see you show up. QB Ninetails is just a small matter. Hee, I didn't expect my son to be so powerful. He could conquer QB Ninetails at a young age. You must be a big hero now, right? Kai Nai praised happily. Naruto had a distressed look on his face, and he couldn't help but think of his life in another world during the Third World War. At that time, he could be considered a hero, but he still had to be separated from Sarah Makoto and the others. What's the matter? Kinai couldn't help asking when she saw the change in Naruto's face. It's nothing. Naruto smiled immediately. Well, you seem to have something on your mind, too. Can you talk to your mother? Kinai said with a gentle smile on Naruto's face as she looked at Naruto. Naruto hesitated for a moment. He had never mentioned those things to others, but at this time in this consciousness space, facing this cheap mother who only had a chakra mental body, he suddenly felt that he had no scruples. For a long time there are too many things in his heart, and he can't usually tell or share with others, but at this moment, facing this woman who is shrouded in the halo of his mother, he suddenly has a strong urge to tell it. At this time, Kainai stepped forward and gently hugged his body again, leaned his head on his shoulder, and said softly, "You must have worked hard when your parents were not around, Naruto, to be able to come this far. One step, you must have put in an effort that ordinary people can't imagine. Hey, it's all my mother's fault." Naruto reached out and patted her jade back comfortingly, shook his head and said slowly, "Nothing, I don't blame you at all. Hey, it's just that I'm not strong enough right now. Come on, tell me, I also want to have a good chat with my son." Kinai took Naruto's hand and sat on the ground. Naruto gave a wry smile, stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. The dark scene around him suddenly changed. Became bright. "It's better to talk to you." Naruto and the two sat cross-legged, looking at Naruto expectantly, waiting for him to continue. Makoto, who met there, and also talked about his current distress about whether he could travel between these two worlds. All this shocked Chennai. After a long time, she came back to her senses, her face full of excitement. "Son, is this all true?" Naruto nodded. "It's incredible. You can actually travel through time and space. Your Minato's Hiraishin technique is even more powerful," Kinai exclaimed excitedly. "Ah, I said that's not the point." Seeing Kina's face full of longing and excitement, Naruto couldn't help but sweat coldly on his head. "Well, I'm sorry, I've never heard of such a miraculous thing. I can't control it for a while." Chennai stuck out her tongue in embarrassment and smiled playfully. "But, son, I didn't expect you to know Makoto. Did you see me?" Kina suddenly asked again. "Ah, this. I don't seem to have seen it." "Oh, is that so?" Chennai was slightly lost, but then he laughed again. "I said, you don't think about that Sarah's queen, do you?" Naruto. Could it be that you are interested in Makoto? She's my friend. I don't know what's going on now. Son, you can't think like that. She's your aunt. Here you are. I should have seen it too. Kainai was startled, and immediately began to teach her a lesson. There was more cold sweat on Naruto's face. Fortunately, he didn't tell her those things. Otherwise, if she knew that she had already done both Makoto and Sarah. Simply unimaginable. Naruto secretly said that some things should be reserved, otherwise, God knows how this cheap mother will look. The Uchiha clan has been exterminated. Now only a few people are left alive. Naruto wiped his sweat and said. Chennai was even more shocked when he heard the words. My God, how could this happen? I can't accept what happened after seeing my death. After a long time, Naruto finally explained the important things that happened to her over the years, and Kinai sighed at this time. Hey, it seems that the current Konoha and even the entire ninja world are unstable, Naruto. You must be under a lot of pressure as a 6th-generation Hokage now. Speaking of which, I am really guilty as a mother. Quote. Chapter 309 set off. It's nothing. Speaking of which, my Hokage is also very incompetent. I often use my clone to work instead of myself. Naruto laughed. It's so naughty. Kainai was also amused, and the suspicion in his heart gradually drifted away with the laughter. Afterwards, the two chatted for a while. Seeing that Kina was still asking questions, Naruto stood up and said, Okay, it's almost time, I should go out. Chennai's face was slightly disappointed, looking at Naruto and exclaiming, Huh. Wait a little longer, I want to have a good chat with you. Naruto looked at her and smiled and said, There's still a chance next time. I can feel that you have enough chakra now. It's okay to support it for several years in my consciousness space, right? Chennai scratched his head. It seems so, because my chakra is not used to contain Kyuubi, 9 tails, it consumes very little now. That's good, I think it might be done outside. Come in and talk to Mom next time. After Naruto waved, the figure disappeared in a flash. In fact, he was a little afraid of this cheap mother. The questions were asked one after another, and the questions were getting deeper and deeper. He couldn't answer many of them, such as those more sensitive topics. Do you have any girls you like? How many girls like you, and so on. It's hard for Naruto to talk about it. So, he had to find an excuse to escape. When Naruto woke up the next day, the sky was already bright, and he realized that he was lying on the cold ground at some point. It seems that after tossing QB, Ninetales, out yesterday, it really took a lot of energy. Although the wounds suffered at that time have long been repaired by the force of life, but the mental fatigue is still irreplaceable. Up from the ground, Naruto stretched slightly. The morning air in Mount Myoboku was even fresher than that of Konoha. He took a deep breath and felt refreshed. At this moment, a huge figure suddenly fell in midair, with fiery Yuhi-colored fur and 9 giant tails that kept swinging. Naruto looked up and couldn't help shouting, "Kyubi, Ninetales, what are you doing?" "Ha, Naruto, accompany this old man to practice." A loud bang, this small mountain was smashed to pieces by the power of QB, Ninetales. In an instant, the rocks were scattered, the smoke filled the sky, Naruto flew out of the chaotic scene, and couldn't help cursing. Said, "Stinky fox, what are you nervous about early in the morning? I can't wait to come out. Why don't you find someone to play with? Hurry up and use your full strength." QB, Ninetales, shouted excitedly. "I'm too lazy to care about you. The 5 Shadows convention is just a day away. I don't have time to accompany you." Naruto pouted in midair. QB, Ninetales, ignored him at all, and opened his mouth and blasted a tailed beast bomb towards him. The next moment, Naruto's thoughts moved, chakra turned slightly, and the figure suddenly disappeared into a golden light. The powerful force of tailed beast bomb blasted into the air, hitting the void. "Damn, how fast!" QB, Ninetales, scolded unhappily. After leaving Mount Myoboku, Naruto has already appeared in Konoha village. In another day, the 5 Shadows conference will start, and he has already pulled out QB, Ninetales, and his own strength has improved a lot. The initial purpose has been achieved. Under the technique of Hiraishin, Naruto immediately appeared in Hokage's office. At this time, his avatar was orderly reviewing various documents. Tsunade was playing cards on the soft seat next to him, and Shizune stood by to help pass the documents. After Naruto appeared, he greeted them 2 times and briefly exchanged the situation during this period before leaving the office. The 5 Shadows meeting was imminent, and the senior management of the village was also making preparations in various aspects, while Naruto slipped out to take a break. After all, once the 5 Shadows meeting was over, he would be busy with the war. The pedestrians on the street were still as lively as usual. Until the war really broke out, the people couldn't feel the tense atmosphere. Naruto stood on the top of the building and his eyes drifted into the distance. "Naruto." Just as Naruto was thinking, a surprised voice suddenly came from the street below. Looking down, he saw a figure leaping towards him quickly. He came to him. Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then he smiled. "Temari. Why did you come to Konoha all of a sudden? Long time no see." "Yeah, Naruto, I rushed over when I heard the news of your return. It's great that you are all right." Temari laughed happily, and seeing Naruto again, her heart tightened immediately. Putting it down, he couldn't help but stepped forward and hugged him gently. "Temari." Naruto hugged her delicate body on the roof, smelling the faint body fragrance on her body, and couldn't help saying, "Temari, you've lost weight. It's all your fault for making people worry so much. If you disappear like this in the future, I won't forgive you." Temari let go of him and punched him in the shoulder. Naruto laughed. "The 5 Shadows conference is about to start. Is it okay if you don't guard Gaara?" After the reunion, the two walked quietly down the street, and Naruto asked. Temari's face turned slightly Yuhi, and he was secretly resentful, "And he didn't come here to see you despite everything. Really?" Seeing her face slightly Yuhi, Naruto couldn't help laughing and said, "In this case, you can go to the 5 Shadows conference with me." At noon the next day, the sun was shining brightly in Hokage's office. Naruto looked at the girls standing in front of him, smiled and said, "Are you all ready? This time I'll only bring Yugao Seijutsu and Shiro. Tsunade-sama and Shizune will stay in Konoha to help me handle things, and Koyuki just stay with Tsunade-sama and the others these few days. Don't run around, you know." Seijutsu, Yugao, Shiro and Tamari came behind Naruto, and the four of them lightly placed his shoulders. "Naruto, can you take me there?" Koyuki said pitifully. Zuo-yu couldn't help but say, "The Five Shadows Conference is not that simple. There are many hidden dangers. Your strength is too weak, and going there will only cause trouble." Koyuki immediately lowered his head in dejection. Naruto glared at Sayu secretly, blaming her for being too serious, and turned to Koyuki. "What Sayu said is not unreasonable. Konoha is much safer in comparison, and now the ninja world is about to start to turmoil. I think it's safer to send you back to the snow country first. You can stay in Konoha as long as you want after the war." Chapter 310 Arrive at Kumogakure Village. In Amegakure Village, deep in the towers, Tiandao Pain stood on the rooftop and looked at the dark sky, sighing slightly. "The Five Shadows Conference is about to start. We must go all out." As soon as he finished speaking, another low male voice sounded from behind him. "Yes, there are still 2 tails. 8 tails and QB 9 tails have not been collected yet. It seems that we have to make a plan." "What plan?" Heavenly Path turned to stare at the masked man in front of him. "Five Shadows Conference," the masked man said lightly. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. "Madara, do you want us to capture the tailed beast during the Five Shadows Conference? Do you want us to die when you do this?" A woman's opinion. The masked man turned his head and glanced at Conan, who was walking slowly, then lowered his head and snorted coldly. "I don't want our organization to be your pawn alone. We are a cooperative relationship. If your plan is unreasonable, we will never execute it." Conan snorted. "Okay, Conan, listen to what Mr. Madara has to say first." Heavenly Path Pain said lightly. In the village of Kumogakure, the mountains are surrounded by clouds and mist, but the prosperous village in the past is now full of ruins, and countless new buildings are being rapidly rebuilt. Since that Akatsuki attack, the village has been devastated, and even Raikage's office building has been destroyed by Deidara's bombs. At this moment, all ninjas and civilians could only helplessly stay in tents that were temporarily set up, and many facilities still needed external supplies. In one of the largest temporary tents, the 4th generation Raikage was discussing matters with many ninjas, when suddenly a ninja came to report. "Lord Raikage, the 5K's Cage of Sand Ninja Village has arrived." At this time, in Yunlei Gorge, Yao Killer Bee and Fuyu Yugito are practicing against each other. Due to Akatsuki's relationship, the two are now under house arrest and under the protection of the village. In order to improve their strength and help the village cope with the enemy, Yugito and Killer Bee have both trained very hard. Because they don't want to let the village suffer like that again, in order to protect the village, they must become stronger and defeat the enemy. Boom! Killer Bee's arm turned into a huge octopus leg and slapped Yugito's body. Yugito flew out, and she immediately entered the tailed beast mode in midair, turned into a 2-tailed cat, and threw Kiba's claws at Killer Bee again. "You're useless at this time, and I can also turn into a tailed beast." "Stupid." Killer Bee rapped strangely, and his movements were unambiguous, and his body immediately turned into a huge 8-tailed minotaur, facing the second tail. Another cat attack. Boom boom boom. 2 Jinchuriki column forces immediately made a mess of the surrounding field. The ground was constantly smashed into large pits, the rocks were shattered, and the dust was flying. At this moment, Naruto happened to appear beside Yugito with the Haraishin technique of the girls. However, the oncoming one happened to be the fist of a rapidly enlarging 8 tails. The girls turned pale with fright, but it was too late to avoid them at this time. In the nick of time, Naruto quickly hand-sealed with both hands. The art of psychic. There was a heavy drink, a loud bang, and a large cloud of white smoke suddenly appeared on the spot. With another bang, the fist of the eight-tailed minotaur slammed into a real object. It hurts. Who beat the old man? A painful groan came from the white smoke, and the next moment a huge fox appeared in front of cat and minotaur. Exactly QB, Nine Tails. Naruto and the girls stand on top of QB, Nine Tails, watching everything in front of them. Because QB, Nine Tails, promised Naruto to assist him, he and Naruto have already made a separate psychic contract, so that Naruto can channel QB, Nine Tails, at Naruto's convenience. Out to fight. What? 9, QB, Nine Tails. Killer Bee and Yugito couldn't help but turn pale when they saw the sudden appearance of the behemoth. Bastard Naruto. The psychic master came out to be a meat shield at this time. I can't spare you. QB, Nine Tails, suddenly heard an angry voice. Ah, is this QB, Nine Tails? Only then did the girls realize that they were stepping on the monster QB, Nine Tails, who had almost destroyed the entire village, and their faces changed greatly. Bai and Zuo Yu were better. They have never experienced the disaster that happened a year ago. Yugao knew about the existence of QB, Nine Tails, at that time. In her mind, standing on top of his head at this time, her feet could not help feeling a little weak. She grabbed Naruto's arm with all her might, her voice trembling slightly. Naruto, how did this monster come out? Tamari was equally shocked, but she was better, because after hearing what QB, Nine Tails, said, she thought that this was Naruto's trick, and couldn't help but ask, Naruto, QB, Nine Tails, was actually summoned by you. Is it? Seeing everyone's reaction, Naruto couldn't help but smile. It seems that Xiaoju's deterrent power is still undiminished. Bastard, the old man is asking you for guilt. Don't change the subject. QB, Nine Tails, growled. At this time, Killer Bee had already handed over the control to Yahweh. He walked towards QB, Nine Tails, patted him on the shoulder and said hello. QB, Nine Tails, your way of appearing is still not good. It really embarrassed me, brother. Go away. The old man hasn't asked you to settle the account yet. QB, Nine Tails, shook off Yahweh's hand and said angrily, I will kill you slowly after I clean up Uzumaki Naruto. Eight Tails forgive immediately. Hey, this QB, Nine Tails' irritable temper is still the same as before. On the other hand, Maoyu, who was playing Chan Oil, saw the two big brothers appear. He sat obediently and played Chan Oil. As the last few of the 9 big-tailed beasts, he usually didn't speak much. Right. Hey, Xiaoju, you can't do this when you see a friend you haven't seen in a long time. Naruto patted his head and smiled. Humph. QB, Nine Tails, hummed angrily. At this time, Yugao, Tamari and the girls were stunned, and the scene of the monster meeting made their brains crash, and they couldn't adapt to it. I think we'd better move aside. It's full of monsters. I can't stand it. Tamari sighed. I agree, Yugao said immediately. Zuiyu licked her soft lips and giggled. I think it's quite interesting. I can't stand it. Yugao looked at Zuoyu while covering his forehead. Bai, on the other hand, was standing beside Naruto with a gentle smile on his face, and his eyes were full of curiosity about these 3 big-tailed beasts. Chapter 311 Rivalry. However, this scene did not last long and was broken in the wrath of QB, Nine Tails. Suddenly, the cloud and thunder gorge caused China to be turbulent, and QB, Nine Tails, shook the 9 giant tails and jumped back and forth, attacking Naruto fiercely. However, soon QB, Nine Tails, fell down, because under Naruto's Mokuden wood style he was bound by 5 flowers with just a little slack, and Naruto, who found some weak points of QB, Nine Tails, shot. It is also handy to deal with QB, Nine Tails. QB, Nine Tails, who was tightly bound and unable to move, everyone was stunned. No, is this the legendary QB, Nine Tails? QB, Nine Tails, you look so embarrassed now. The 8-tailed minotaur laughed. Shut up, you dead cow, QB, Nine Tails, roared. Naruto, I didn't expect QB, Nine Tails, to be subdued so easily by you. It's amazing. Tamari jumped up to him, put his arms around his waist and kissed him on the face, exclaiming excitedly. Stand up. Cut. Zuo-yu pouted angrily. Okay, everyone, we have just arrived at Kumogakure village, so we can't destroy the other people's territory. QB Ninetales, you should go back too. Naruto waved his hand. We have to meet Raikage-sama. Bastard. Put the old man down first. QB Ninetales shouted, waving his limbs. People are sweating. Naruto smiled and released Mokuden, wood style, and released QB Ninetales. Then the Eight Tails also retreated. Killer Bee untied the tail beast and recovered his body, and Yugito also turned back into a beauty. Yo, is this the legendary 6th generation Hokage? I heard Yugito talk about you. You're so handsome. Killer Bee jumped in front of Naruto, tapped him on the shoulder and rapped. The corners of Naruto's mouth twitched. He was a little speechless about his rap, and nodded at him. At this moment, Yugito came over, looked at Naruto and said lightly, Uzumaki Naruto, I heard that you disappeared last time, and I couldn't get in touch with the coup you gave. What happened? Naruto was stunned for a moment, then he touched his nose with a wry smile. It's hard to explain this matter, and I can't explain it for a while, hee, but thank you for your concern. Humph, who cares about you? Yugito's face couldn't help flashing Yuhi's dizziness when he heard the words, and immediately said angrily, didn't you say well last time that someone from the Jinchuriki Column Force Alliance? Why did they disappear at the critical moment? Naruto was immediately embarrassed. He had traveled to another world at that time, and there was no way to sense the spatial coordinates here. Where could he transmit it? Seeing that Naruto was really struggling, Yugito's face relaxed slightly. He waved his hand, and said lightly, forget it, at least Killer Bee and I haven't had an accident, and you're back. Naruto touched his nose and smiled bitterly. Zuo-yu couldn't stand Yugito's arrogant appearance anymore, and stood up and snorted. Don't say it's so simple, how much do you know about Naruto? Don't blame Naruto easily if you don't understand some things. Otherwise, it's just annoying. Yugito was stunned for a moment. She was sprayed with drool all over her face by Sayu, and the expression on her face was a little tangled. As a Jinchuriki column force from Kumogakure village, others are extremely respectful to her. Even the ninjas in the outer village are in awe when they see her. I didn't expect that this little girl who was not fully developed would dare to teach herself such a lesson. Immediately, her face turned cold, and she snorted coldly, it seems that it's not your turn to take care of me and Naruto, right? What did you say? Zuiyu was slightly furious. She was also extremely disliked by this arrogant guy. Hearing the words, she pulled out the short knife behind her back, and the snowflake-shaped Mangekyo instantly appeared in her eyes, staring at Yugito coldly. Oh, it turns out that you are a girl from the Uchiha family, no wonder you are so arrogant. Yugito couldn't help but flash a hint of surprise on his face after seeing Sayu's pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. Okay, don't fight the two of you. Today is not for a fight. Naruto waved his hand to stop the tension between the two. The two women snorted and turned their heads to look away. Naruto secretly said trouble. This is really a disadvantage. Goodbye to Yugito and Killer Bee. Naruto went to find Raikage, but QB Ninetales, who was beside him, refused to go back to Mount Myoboku. Seeing him lying on the ground and falling asleep directly, Naruto couldn't help but have black lines all over his head. Hey, QB Ninetales, get up and head back to Mount Myoboku. Do you still want to stay here? Naruto stepped forward and kicked him. Damn it, don't disturb the old man's sleep. QB Ninetales opened his eyes and spouted at Naruto. Cut. If you don't follow the rules, you can only use force. Naruto reluctantly made a wait gesture to everyone, and the next moment the figure flashed and jumped directly to the top of QB Ninetales' head. His hands were slightly knotted. With a seal, he snorted softly, the art of Hiraishin. Boom. And along with an angry cry from QB Ninetales, one person and one fox suddenly disappeared in place. Bai covered his mouth and chuckled. It seems that Naruto and QB Ninetales have a good relationship. HMPH, no wonder this guy didn't come to see me yesterday, it turned out to be with this fox. Zuo muttered. Is she eating the fox's vinegar? Sweat. After a while, Naruto Jingguang flashed back to the crowd again, clapped his hands, let out a breath, and said with a smile, okay, let's go see Hokage. Yeah, the three women responded and followed Naruto to the outside of Yunlei Gorge. Hiraishin, art. It's really convenient. It would be perfect if I could too. Oh, killer be praised. And Yugito seemed to be still angry about what happened with Zuo just now, and ran silently to practice. In Kumogakure village, Naruto, led by several ninjas, came to the tent where Hokage was. Along the way, I saw the mess in the village, which reminded Naruto of the destroyed Konoha in the original book. I didn't expect that the Kumogakure village was attacked like this now. Sir Hokage, the 6th generation of the Konoha village has arrived, said the ninja who led the way in. Naruto is here. Kazekage Gaara, who had just arrived not long ago, was talking with Hokage at this time, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch into a smile. Come in. Hokage also had a happy expression on his face. He had heard a lot of rumors about the 6th generation of Hokage in Konoha village. He knew that he must not neglect such a genius, so when Naruto walked in, the next moment he immediately greeted him. 4th generation Hokage, it seems that I'm not too late. Naruto glanced at the tent lightly, only two shadows of Gaara and Hokage, and knew that Mizukage and Tsuchikage had not arrived yet. Long time no see, Gaara. After greeting Hokage, Naruto went up and shook hands with Gaara. I also brought Temari, so you don't need any guards, right? Chapter 312 Calm Naruto. Naruto, your breath has become stronger. Gaara showed a rare smile on his face, and glanced at Temari. Temari may be embarrassed because he left AWOL, and his face couldn't help but slightly. Yuhi then walked behind Gaara. At this time, Hokage was already laughing and asked his secretary, Azabui, to move Naruto a seat, and he and Gaara sat at the only large table in the tent. 6th generation, please take a seat. The dark-skinned beauty Azabui carefully moved the seat for Naruto, and then handed him a cup of tea. Enjoying the leader-level treatment, Naruto couldn't help but smile. At this time, both Zuiyu Yugao and Bai were meticulously standing behind him, acting as his guards, and their serious expressions also supported the scene. Naruto smiled contentedly, and secretly thought that apart from Shiro, Sayu and Yugao usually don't care about their majesty as a Hokage, but they are very considerate of themselves in formal occasions. 6th generation, I heard that you have been missing for a while, what happened? After the three shadows sat down, Hokage started chatting and asked Naruto. Naruto shook his head and smiled without saying a word. Hokage was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed and said, that's right, it seems that I'm always confused, this is a matter of confidentiality. Ah ha ha. Naruto smiled lightly. At this moment, a coquettish voice suddenly came from outside the tent. Yo, what made Lord Hokage laugh so happily? Everyone couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and Hokage immediately reacted. As the host, he immediately got up to greet him. Several figures walked in from outside the tent, and Naruto and Gaara also stood up and turned to look at them. It was Mizukage from the village of Kurigakure and her guard Zao and Chojuro. 5 generations of Mizukage, welcome. Hokage greeted him and said. Terumi May first covered her mouth and smiled and said, it seems that the little girl is late. Kazekage, Hokage is here. And the old man from Iwagakure village hasn't arrived yet. Come, take a seat first. Hokage brought Terumi May to the large conference table and motioned her to sit down. Terumi May smiled lightly, glanced at Gaara and Naruto, and carefully sat down next to Naruto. 6th Hokage-sama, stay safe. Terumi May whispered to him. Long time no see. Naruto snorted softly and said hello. I was still very unhappy about this woman calculating her own affairs at that time. At that time, because of Bai's affairs, I wanted to release her previous suspicions and lay the foundation for the cooperation between the two villages, but unexpectedly, she came out and disgusted me in the end. So no matter how coquettish she was in front of him at this time, he didn't plan to look at her directly. Terumi felt aggrieved and said, "Lord Hokage, what's the matter? Why did you ignore me? I greeted you very kindly." Of course Naruto knew that she was warm on the outside, but she didn't know how she was on the inside. At least it was definitely not that easy to get along with, as she could tell from the last time she calculated herself. Therefore, Naruto also lacked enthusiasm for her words, and just smiled politely. "Senior Mizukage is so handsome, how can you ignore it?" Behind her, Zuoyu saw Mizukage's seductive look. No matter how she looked at it, she was seducing Naruto. She couldn't help snorting angrily, and then gave her a vicious look. Terumi glanced at Sayuki with a slightly puzzled look, and immediately smiled at Naruto ambiguous. Naruto glanced at her and saw that she was wearing an off-the-shoulder low-cut long dress, with her long wine-yui-colored hair lightly draped over her back. Xuanfang, who was trembling slightly in front of his chest, was in danger of silently inviting a man to ravage him. Naruto secretly calmed down, secretly saying that he must not be confused by this seductive goblin. Strange, why is Naruto not tempted by this beauty this time? Yugao, who was standing behind him, was secretly surprised. At this time, Terumi glanced at Naruto behind Naruto, and suddenly said sourly, "Hey, the 6th generation is really domineering. He kidnapped the beautiful girl from our village, and let her serve as a guard to humiliate me." Hearing this, Naruto couldn't help frowning. "Bai is my person. You promised me back then. As for what you think, that's your business." Terumi couldn't help but stunned for a moment, and secretly thought that this guy was so unsympathetic to Shangqiu. He wanted to tease him, but he didn't expect to be so ignorant. A cold face, Terumi snorted and had to shy away from talking to him. "However, when I saw that Bai had been looking at Naruto with affection, I couldn't help but feel envious." And Reikage and Gaara turned a blind eye to the relationship between Mizukage and Naruto. Just seeing the two of them whispering there, they couldn't help but think of something. After a while, Tsuchikage also arrived at Kumogakure village and walked into the tent with his apprentice and granddaughter. "I didn't expect this old man to be the last one." Tsuchikage floated in, and he didn't need anyone to answer, so he came to his seat and sat down, looked around the crowd, and nodded slightly. "It seems that I am old. The shadows of the villages have changed." "Haha, Senior Onoki is still growing strong," Reikage said to Guy. "The 5th generation of Kazekage, the 5th generation of Mizukage, and the 6th generation of Hokage, it seems that we have a big difference in generation," Onoki said. "Then old man, abdicate and let Shion chant." Mizukage chuckled lightly. "Hey, a bunch of juniors are too bad. How can they compare to you? Do you think it's the 6th generation of Hokage?" Naruto glanced at him, and he didn't like this old man. Compared to him, he would rather make friends with Reikage than get along with such a stubborn old guy, so Wen Yan just smiled lightly and didn't speak. However, Naruto's performance was very arrogant to the people of Tsuchikage village, especially Kuretsuchi, who had always admired his grandfather, and couldn't help but glared at him. Naruto ignored their reactions, but said directly to Reikage, "Okay, since everyone is here, let's start, time waits for no one." "Well, that's the end of the pointless words, let's pack up and start the 5 Shadows meeting." Gaara also responded. "Okay, since everyone is so active, I announce that the 5 Shadows conference will begin." Reikage stood up and announced with a big wave of his hand. Chapter 313 Uninvited Guests Come. The 5 Shadows Conference begins. Naruto also participated once in another world, but at the 5 Shadows Conference, his identity was equivalent to an outsider, and this time, as the 6th generation of Hokage in Konoha village, he really had to do his own job. Set off. Therefore, at this 5 Shadows Conference, Naruto also cooperated with everyone to discuss various issues, mainly discussing how to deal with Akatsuki. Naruto already knew about Akatsuki's information. At this meeting, he simply stated the strengths and weaknesses of everyone in Akatsuki, and discussed them with the 5 Shadows. I can't believe that you can get such detailed information in the 6th generation. With this information, Akatsuki is not afraid. Reikage sighed. The old man is very curious about how you got this information. Even the intelligence departments of our major ninja villages are difficult to find out. You are really powerful in the 6th generation. Onoki also said. Naruto smiled lightly. I have my own means of how to get this information. In short, I won't lie to you. Now the focus of the question is how to deal with them instead of questioning me. Hee, yes, it's a secret. Don't be curious. Terumi suddenly spoke for Naruto. Naruto glanced at her in surprise, but in exchange she gave her a seductive wink. Everyone reanalyzed the information that Naruto said, and after a long discussion, Reikage said, it seems that as long as we make a reasonable plan, Akatsuki's few Kage-level powerhouses are not difficult to deal with. But even if we know the opponent's weaknesses, there must be someone who can capture their weaknesses during the battle. In the ninja world, I am afraid that only our 5 Kage-level ninjas can fight against them one-on-one. As for the others, I am afraid that no matter how many people there are, it will be difficult to kill each other. Gaara said, he and Deidara had fought a battle before, and he knew the terrifying strength of each other. This is true for all Akatsuki members. It's like looking for death. Kage said it well. When your strength reaches Kage level, you often avoid exposing your weaknesses during battles. It's really not easy to kill them. Onoki nodded. Naruto listened to everyone's discussion, his brows suddenly wrinkled, and his eyes turned to the ground in the center of the ring-shaped conference table. Kai. With an abnormal noise, a green pitcher plant-shaped plant suddenly appeared under the ground. What? The shadows and the guards were startled. The guards stopped in front of the shadows for the first time, staring at the pitcher plant that suddenly opened, revealing the white figure inside. It was White Zetsu. Hello everyone, I'm here to join in the fun, haha. White Zetsu opened his mouth and smiled strangely. Seeing the shocked look of everyone, he smiled even happier. Naruto sat quietly on the seat, waved his hand, motioned Zuoyu and others to step back, and said lightly, this is just his clone, don't bother. Boom. Naruto finished speaking. Reikage couldn't help rushing up and punching White Zetsu into the table. Even the conference table was smashed into a big hole, and sawdust flew. Reikage grabbed White Zetsu's neck and threw him. He took it out and put it on the conference table and said viciously, dare to come to the Five Shadows conference to make trouble, you are courting death. Ha ha ha, you guys are all dead. White Zetsu was restrained, but suddenly burst into laughter, which made everyone have a bad premonition. Reikage snorted angrily and directly cut off White Zetsu's neck, and the entire White Zetsu turned into a soft white object on the conference table. At this moment, Naruto's face suddenly changed slightly, and he looked up suddenly, but heard a loud bang in his ears, and there was the panicked voice of the ninja outside. Not good. Ladies and gentlemen, there are enemy air strikes. The shadows and the guards were shocked when they heard the words. They hurriedly rushed out of the conference tent and ran outside to look up, only to see white clay bombs falling from the sky, and they kept falling in the Kumogakure village. The building under construction was torn apart. Boom boom boom. Explosions sounded incessantly, and the flames were everywhere. Reikage turned blue with anger, looked up at Deidara, who was flying around in the air, and shouted angrily, who is it for Lao Su to clean him up? Immediately around, ninjas flew into the air on flight-type psychic beasts, intending to stop Deidara's bombing. However, Deidara's bombs were released so fast and unpredictable. The incomparable clay bird bomb fell. The screams and explosions filled his ears. Naruto frowned, and Onoki was shaking with anger. Deidara is his proudest disciple, but not only did he not listen to his bombing and destruction, he also joined Akatsuki, and now he dares to attack the Five Shadows Convention. It's a shame for him to find a master. Old man, the third-generation Tsuchikage roared, and his body quickly flew into the air. Deidara, you unworthy apprentice, still remember this old man. Cut. The old man fast into the coffin, don't come out and be brave. Be careful to dodge your old waste. Deidara waved and threw a bomb directly at Onoki. A loud bang, Onoki quickly hand-seal summoned a boulder in front of him, blocking all the shock waves from the bomb. HMPH, it's behind you. Deidara sneered disdainfully. Your reaction is too slow. Old man. What? Onoki turned his head sharply, only to see a bomb bird appeared beside him at some point, but it was too late to escape. Boom! There was a violent explosion in midair, accompanied by firelight and thick smoke, making everyone's heart tighten. Grandpa! Seeing this scene, Kuretsuchi couldn't help exclaiming, his face full of worry. Naruto smiled, but there was no anxious expression on his face. After the aftermath of the explosion passed, Deidara clapped her hands and said disdainfully, "This old man is so useless, he killed him in one fell swoop." Really? Deidara, take a punch from the old man. Doden Earth style added weight rock technique. At this moment, Onoki suddenly appeared above Deidara, who was muttering to himself, hand seal with both hands, and after a deep drink, a sudden punch slammed into his body. Deidara's face was startled, but she couldn't dodge the next moment, and was punched in the back by Onoki. After a scream, she was knocked down with the bird and man. At this time, the many ninjas who had been waiting below all rushed out in the direction where Deidara fell, and they all used ninjutsu to attack him. Chapter 314 Time Shift. Cut, what a bunch of idiots. Zuo Yu, who was behind Naruto, used Sharingan to see through that Deidara who was knocked down was not the real body, but a clone made of clay. Seeing everyone rushing like fools, go up and snort softly. Sure enough, when the group of Kumogakure village ninjas rushed to Deidara, where was he still? Reikage's face was gloomy, and it was no wonder the gap in strength was there, and the ninja in his own village couldn't see through the other's ninjutsu, and there was nothing to say. Reikage was also very clear about the identity of Sayu's Uchiha clan. In the face of insight, this level of art can quickly be seen through. However, at this moment, Zuo Yu suddenly exclaimed, "Not good. Let them get out of the way." Huh! Reikage was stunned for a moment, but Onoki in midair also exclaimed, "That's a bomb clone. The ninjas below are going away." Boom! However, it was obviously too late. Just as Tsuchikage spoke, the knocked-down clay clone exploded with a bang. Suddenly, the flames of the explosion filled the sky, and Reikage and others all lost their color. Looking at the explosion of fire, everyone in Kumogakure village was extremely angry. Naruto also frowned. Just now he realized that something was wrong. He wanted to rush over to help, but he was helpless. No matter how fast he was, it was still not faster than the moment when the bomb exploded. If he used the technique of Hiraishin, maybe I can catch up, but there is no Hiraishin technique over there, so obviously I can't teleport there. Seeing the scene where many Kumogakure village ninjas were blown away, Naruto was also secretly angry. Ha ha ha, this is art. The art of explosion. Deidara's voice sounded above Naruto and the others, and I saw that he flew above everyone's heads at some point, laughing loudly, and reached out his hand to make a seal. Let you have a taste of this art. My highest art. C4 Garuda. Deidara suddenly opened his mouth, and suddenly a huge white clay spewed out of his mouth, and the white clay quickly gathered into a huge Deidara avatar. Everyone was shocked. What is this? No, everyone flash. Onoki knew the power of Deidara's special Bakuden, explosion style, and once the bomb exploded, few people present could completely defend against it. Damn, it's so arrogant. Let the old man come and meet him. Reikage couldn't bear the humiliation of being beaten in the village any longer. Flash is about to fly up. At this moment, Naruto suddenly reached out to stop him, and said lightly, "Reikage, the fourth generation, do you have a way to stop this big guy from exploding?" Reikage was taken aback. The old man, Raiden Thunder style, just restrained his Doden Earth style. Naruto shook his head. That's not necessarily the case. The chakra contained in his technique is also very powerful. Even if you can restrain him, you can't completely restrain so many chakras in an instant. This. Gaara suddenly said, Naruto, it seems that you have a solution. Naruto glanced at him and nodded. Well, let me try it. Terumi stopped joking at this time, and nodded in support of Naruto with a serious face. The 4th generation, let's leave it to the 6th generation of Hokage. Let's also see his strength. Raikage then dissipated the lightning armor and looked at Naruto. Then the old man will let you try it. Don't let the old man down. I hope you can be as talented as the legend. And just as he was talking, Deidara's huge clone had begun to swell. Fortunately, Naruto had secretly condensed chakra to prepare for hand seal long before that. I saw him jumping lightly, instantly in midair, his hands aimed at the huge clay clone, and quickly formed a few seals. In one breath, the seal was finished. Naruto focused, held his breath, and chakra poured out. Suddenly, in the space around the huge Deidara clone, a series of fine black runes quickly appeared, and quickly rotated and extended around it. This is... Everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Those complicated runes, anyway, everyone can't even read them. Time and space enchantment. Onoki, who was watching in midair, had a wealth of experience. At a glance, he could see that Naruto was using the most mysterious and difficult time-space technique in the ninja world. His face was full of shock. Color. What is this? Deidara also saw Naruto's shot in midair, and couldn't help but feel bad. The next moment, he immediately threw a clay-white bird at Naruto who was performing the spell. However, this was immediately noticed by the girls who were attached to Naruto. Zuiyu snorted angrily, flicked her jade arm lightly, and suddenly a fist-sized ball of lightning shot out and slammed into the clay with a bang. Above the bird, it exploded. At this time, Naruto has also completed the operation of the entire technique. The space technique has been established, the transfer location has been selected, and at the moment when the huge clone was about to explode, Naruto's technique was activated. Time-space transfer technique. Naruto snorted softly, and at the moment when the light of the explosion shone, he transferred the behemoth to other places. Everyone only felt that the space in front of them flickered slightly, and the bomb clone that was about to explode suddenly disappeared out of thin air. Time and space ninjutsu. This is the legendary time and space ninjutsu. Someone couldn't help but sigh. Boom. Ground shook suddenly, and on a barren hill outside the Kumogakure village, an explosion of fire rose into the sky, and it was silent again in an instant. Under the power of C4 Garuda, all the objects in the barren mountain are rapidly dissolving at a speed that is unseen by the naked eye. Birds, animals, woods. After a dead silence, everyone came back to their senses. At this time, I heard Deidara's irritated scolding. Damn Uzumaki Naruto. It's bad for me. Do you know how sinful it is to interfere with my art? The super bomb that he had made with great effort was transferred so easily by Naruto. This sense of frustration made him so angry that he couldn't help but dive down directly at Naruto, and he waved his arms again and again, suddenly a large piece of clay. The bomb flew down, vowing to blow him to pieces. Naruto pouted, and at the moment Deidara's bomb shot, he also quickly shot several Hiraishin kunai, jumping over the direct bomb to come directly to Deidara. At this time, Deidara's bomb had come to Naruto's door. Ha ha ha, art is an explosion. Seeing that Naruto was about to be blown up by himself, Deidara shouted excitedly, stretched out his hand and gave a hand seal, and immediately detonated the whole bomb. Chapter 315 Sound East and West. However, these bombs are not so easy to blow up Naruto. Under the technique of Hiraishin, Naruto can be deflected in the moment of explosion. In fact, Naruto did the same thing. The moment Deidara detonated the bomb, Naruto's figure turned into a golden light and disappeared. However, when the bomb exploded, the ninjas below couldn't help but sweat for Naruto. And those ninjas who didn't know that Naruto had the technique of Hiraishin exclaimed. Surrounded by so many bombs, did the new Hokage just fall? A bunch of idiots. How could Naruto fall because of this kind of attack? Zuoyu heard the exclamations of everyone, and pouted very calmly, disdainfully. Sure enough, Just after the thick smoke of the explosion dissipated, an exhilarating scene in midair was revealed. Naruto was standing on the white clay bird under Deidara, holding Hiraishin kunai in his hand, and using that sharp cold glow to top his head. He held his neck with a grim expression. Deidara was stunned for a moment. It seemed that she noticed that she was restrained by Naruto at this time, and she couldn't help showing a shocked expression on her face. However, a dangerous arc appeared on the corner of his mouth immediately. Uzumaki Naruto, I already knew that your Hiraishin technique is very powerful, and I have been guarding against your hand. Ha ha ha, wait to die. Deidara laughed, and her body suddenly turned around, her arms circled, he hugged Naruto tightly, and at the same time the whole person began to swell up. Another bomb clone. Naruto. Seeing this, Zuiyu below couldn't help but look anxious, and Bai and Yugao had already planned to rescue Naruto. However, Naruto just smiled faintly, idiot. Boom. The next moment, Naruto's whole body chakra skyrocketed, a golden light flashed, and the air couldn't help being shaken. The clay clone on Naruto's body was torn in half by Naruto's direct hands, and at the moment when the clone bomb was about to explode, he threw it out with a big hand. Boom. The bomb clone, which was torn in half, exploded in midair at this time, sparking a fire all over the sky. Naruto regained his momentum, chakra gradually subsided, and the figure flashed back to the three white people. At this time, everyone was still in the shock of being forced by Naruto's powerful chakra just now. What a strong chakra! What a strong momentum! Looking at Naruto's comeback at this time, everyone dared not imagine that this was the person who burst out with incomparably powerful momentum just now. It is simply unbelievable, the strength of that chakra, even the tailed beast can't compare. This guy is so strong. Karachi murmured in jaw-dropping. When she saw this guy fighting with her grandfather, she thought it was her grandfather who won. Now it seems that the strength is definitely not worse than Grandpa. Similarly, Mizukage's guards, Reikage's guards, and Kankuro around Gaara were also surprised by Naruto's powerful chakra. Unexpectedly, Naruto's progress is much faster than himself. Gaara originally wanted to compete with Naruto, but with that chakra alone, he couldn't compare. Outside of Kumogakure village, Deidara was panting slightly in midair, and said with a hint of fear in his eyes, "This guy is really not something he can deal with, it's terrible." Apart from that mysterious time-space ninjutsu, even chakra is also outrageously powerful. Such a guy, Akatsuki, can't be compared except for the boss. Fortunately, my mission has been completed, fortunately not to be humiliated. Deidara murmured and flew into the distance. Before that, an extremely fierce battle was being staged in Yunlei Gorge. Killer Bee has turned into 8 tails, but he is still helpless in the face of the 6 Kage-level powerhouses in front of him. No matter how he attacks, he cannot hurt the opponent. It is as if all his actions have been seen through. No matter how fast, how unexpected it was, he could still notice it for the first time. These 6 Kage-level powerhouses are exactly Pain's 6 paths. And their plan is to use Deidara's bomb as a bait to attract Wukage's attention to delay them, and he carries out a sneak attack on Urwei and Yaoi. But unfortunately, it's not the 2 tails who are easy to deal with, but the strongest person Jinchuriki column power 8 tails. 8 tails fell into a hard fight. Shinra Tensei Almighty Push sign. Heavenly Path Pain stretched out his hand and said lightly in the mouth of Yao who was rushing forward. In an instant, an incomparably strong repulsive force emanated from him, and even with the impact force generated by such a huge body of Yatai, it was impossible to advance half a step in the realm of the Shinra Tensei Almighty Push sign. Ow! 8 Tails cried out in pain, and the next moment, her body was rolled out and slammed into a small hill, denting the entire hill. Damn, it hurts. Yahweh stood up with difficulty. He suddenly opened his mouth in anger and spat out a huge tailed beast bomb at the Pain 6. Boom. A strong chakra shockwave slammed into the 6 people, but the hungry ghost road in Pain 6 paths suddenly stopped in front of them, and opened his hands to meet the tailed beast bomb. The next moment, the fierce-tailed beast bomb slammed in front of Hungry Ghost Dao, but a light curtain suddenly rose, and the powerful chakra attack was actually blocked. And in being rapidly absorbed. Eight Tails paled in shock. However, the impact of Yao's tailed beast bomb was too great, and even the absorbing ability of Hungry Ghost Road couldn't intercept it all. Under the fierce attack of Yao, Hungry Ghost Road's footsteps gradually retreated. Heavenly Path Pain immediately stretched out his arm. Shinra Tensai, Almighty Push, sign. Boom. With a loud bang, all the chakras were bounced off by an invisible repulsive force, and even the power of Tailed Beast Bomb was ruthlessly blocked. Eight Tails stared at the six people with a pair of bull's eyes. At this time, Heavenly Path, who did not give Yao any respite at all, raised his hand and shouted again, Bansho Tenon, Universal Pull. An instant, a suction force came out, and the huge body of Killer Bee of Yahweh couldn't help falling to the ground, and was sucked by Heavenly Path firmly. Hungry Ghost Road rushed over immediately, and pressed his hands on the huge body of Yahweh, and the chakra on Yahweh's body suddenly leaked out like a river. Chapter 316 Rescue in Time. At this time, Naruto, who was watched by everyone's eyes, suddenly noticed the strong chakra fluctuations in Yunlei Gorge, and his face changed slightly. At this moment, a Kumogakure village Chunin suddenly ran over, rushed in front of Reikage and shouted, Reikage-sama, it's not good, Killer Bee-sama was attacked by Akatsuki members. Now we are in a hard fight. What about Yugito? Is she there? Reikage's expression changed, and his face could not help but burst into anger. Lord Yugito doesn't know where it is, we only see the situation of Lord Killerbee after he transforms into a beast. The ninja continued to report. Damn Akatsuki, come to make trouble at this time. Reikage was furious. Naruto waved his hand and said to Reikage, I know where Yugito is, I'll take you there. Reikage and others couldn't help but stunned. At this time, Yugito has also encountered a strange enemy and is fighting with him. Obito, the masked man. Who the hell are you? Yugito swept over with one leg, but passed through the opponent's body, as if the opponent's body was just an air or a phantom, making it impossible to hit him at all. Jinchuriki Column Force, Two-Tailed Man, don't make useless struggles, just accept the surrender. You can't escape my palm. After the masked man finished speaking lightly, he reached out and grabbed Yugito's body. Yugito's silver kiba took a bite, and an extremely powerful chakra emerged from his fists, and slammed into the masked man who came straight at him. However, there was no doubt that her attack had passed through the opponent's body, while the masked man had already passed through Yugito and got behind her. Suddenly, the masked man turned around and grabbed Yugito's shoulders with both hands. Rapid rotation of the Sharingan, the space in front of him was suddenly stirred. Yugito was shocked, but when she turned around, she found that her body was being pulled by an irresistible force of space tearing, and she couldn't help but feel a shock. Yugito suddenly felt that the suction was exhausted, and his body couldn't help but lighten slightly, but when he turned his head, he saw a faint golden light flashing in front of him, and the next moment he fell into a wide embrace. Yugito couldn't help but looked up in surprise, just in time to see Naruto's smiling face. Are you okay? Naruto asked, looking at her. It turned out that at the moment when Yugito was in danger, Naruto used the technique of Hiraishin to bring Reikage to his side. Feeling the threat of the masked man, he immediately attacked him. At this time, the masked man was using Kamui to absorb Yugito's body. His own body was in a physical state, and he didn't dare to take Naruto's blow at all. Took her. It's okay. Yugito was hugged by a man for the first time. He felt Naruto's big hand was placed under his chest, and suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart, and his face couldn't help but slightly. Yuhi. Hearing Yugito's answer, Naruto knew she was fine, so he let go of her, and said coldly to the masked man opposite, It seems that your plan is to lure us away and secretly attack Jinchuriki Column, but it didn't work out in the end. Uzumaki Naruto, I didn't expect you to do bad things to me. The masked male voice contained anger. Looks like you guys really don't die. Now Yugito is under my protection, let's see who can hurt her. Naruto took a step forward, his voice strong. Yugito's body trembled slightly, looking at Naruto's back. An unspeakable emotion suddenly surged in his heart. Can he really protect me? Do I really need his protection? Yugito couldn't help but feel ripples in his heart. Hokage, who was brought over by Naruto's teleportation, was already furious. He released chakra from his whole body, and instantly put on a layer of lightning coat on the surface of his body. He glared at the masked man and said angrily, "No matter what your Akatsuki have. What conspiracy, I will solve you here today." Boom. Soon as the voice fell, the ground under Hokage's feet suddenly burst open, and his body disappeared in place in an instant. A flash of electric light flashed in the air, and he appeared in front of the masked man. One punch. Lightning strikes. However, no matter how sharp and fast Hokage's attack is, it can't be faster than the masked man's nihilistic transformation. In the next moment, his attack had passed through the masked man's body and hit the ground behind him with a bang. Hokage looked at the masked man in surprise. What a strange ninjutsu that can pass through my attack without any damage. Physical attacks are useless to me, the masked man said lightly. When Yugito saw that Lord Hokage couldn't hurt him, he had no choice but to frown at Naruto. This guy's technique is too weird, even Lord Hokage's speed can't hit him, it's really not easy. Naruto curled his lips slightly, and said to Yugito and Hokage, "This guy is very difficult to deal with. You all leave here and go to Yao. He needs help more, he will be dealt with by me. Otherwise, the time will be delayed. If something goes wrong over there, it's bad." When the two of Hokage heard it, they felt reasonable, nodded and hurriedly walked in the direction of Yao. A trace of anger flashed in the masked man's eyes. Damn Uzumaki Naruto, his thinking is too sensitive. He wanted to delay the three of them here and let pain subdue Yaoi, but he didn't expect that he had already noticed something wrong. It seems that the biggest rival among the five shadows is you. Uzumaki Naruto, the masked man said coldly. Naruto smiled lightly. Because of my absence, I asked you Akatsuki to subdue the six-tailed beasts. Now that I am here, I will not let you succeed again. Huh, is that so? Then we'll wait and see. The masked man snorted coldly, looking at Yugito and Hokage's fast-moving figures with unwillingness, and he also disappeared in place. Naruto watched him disappear into the air, and left the place the next moment, rushing towards where Yao was. After a while, Naruto had caught up with Hokage and Yugito, and the three quickly rushed to the place where Yaoi was located in Yunlei Gorge. The next moment, as soon as they got there, they saw Killer Bee standing in the field, sweating and panting. His clothes were full of holes, and Yin Yuhi's blood was on his body. Killer Bee. Hokage's face changed greatly when he saw this, and his body rushed up after turning on the lightning armor. Chapter 317 Prevent. Pain 6 Paths is at a critical moment at this time. The strength that Killer Bee has burst out before is very strong. Even if he is caught by his own Vientiantianian and absorbs chakra, he can still use the secret technique to escape. Killer Bee was suppressed, and he was about to take him down, but he didn't expect Hokage and others to have rushed over. Heavenly Path frowned and muttered, "It seems that Deidara didn't procrastinate enough." At this moment, the space beside Heavenly Path shook for a while, and a figure slowly emerged. Pain, this plan failed, retreat. The masked man appeared beside him and said slowly. Heavenly Path was silent for a while, then said coldly, "Every time I make a shot, I never come back empty-handed. I am determined to win both Yaoi and Erwei." The masked man stared at him for a while before he said, "Your strength should not be exposed now, there is still a tough battle to be fought, and now that our actions have been discovered, the people here will meet next. More and more, the situation will be more unfavorable for us." Heavenly Path fell silent again. At this time, Hokage had already supported the crumbling 8 tails, and when he saw Pain's 6 paths and the masked man, his face became extremely heavy. He is very clear about Killer Bee's strength. Ninja Village's most perfect Killer Bee Jinchuriki column strength is unfathomable, and he was beaten like this by these 6 people for a period of time. Even if he changed himself, I'm afraid he couldn't do better than him. At this time, there are only 3 people on his side who can still fight, and Killer Bee seems to be useless for a while. With 3 to 7, no matter how you look at it, your side is weak. However, Hokage is not afraid of challenges, and to meet the strong, he is also eager for it. 6th generation, why don't we join forces to take down these people? Hokage helped Killer Bee aside and shouted at Naruto. Naruto was observing Pain's 6 paths at this time, and he nodded slightly with a smile. All right, if we kill a few members of Akatsuki here, it will also boost our morale. Humph. That's right, Yugito agreed. Hearing the conversation between Naruto and the others, Pain said with a blank face, "It's just right, it saves us from chasing and killing you, so let's capture all of you here." Arrogant. Hokage shouted angrily, and the figure disappeared in the next moment, and appeared in front of Heavenly Path in an instant. The masked man stepped back, but he didn't want to participate in the battle, so he stood by and watched silently. Shinra Tensei Almighty Push sign. Although Hokage's speed is too fast to reflect, but with Heavenly Path's strength and Rinnegan's vision sharing ability, no matter how fast his movements are, he can't escape his eyes. Right in Hokage when Kankin reached in front of Heavenly Path suddenly reached out and attacked. Boom. An invisible repulsive force spread out. Hokage rushed faster and retreated faster. I saw him slam into the invisible aura, and was slammed back by the huge repulsive force. Boom. Loud bang. Hokage's body flew out like a cannonball, drawing a long trajectory on the ground, and then slammed into the rubble next to him. Yugito looked shocked. This was the first time she saw Hokage's attack being bounced back. What happened? Lord Hokage actually lost to the opponent in the first round. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Naruto quietly pulled out Hiraishin kunai and held it in his hand. Just as Heavenly Path had just used Hiraishin, he threw kunai towards him. A dim light flashed, and kunai came directly in front of Heavenly Path. Slightly startled, Heavenly Path was about to sign with Shinra Tensei Almighty Push, but because the interval time did not come, he chose to dodge. A golden light flashed, and Naruto instantly appeared in front of Heavenly Path. Just when Heavenly Path's eyes widened, a Rasengan in his palm, which continued to spin, pressed hard against his chest. Seeing this scene, Yugito couldn't help showing a hint of surprise on her face. However, the next moment she saw that someone suddenly rushed to Heavenly Path's side, pushed Heavenly Path away and stopped in front of Naruto. Boom! Rasengan instantly hit the figure. However, a light curtain suddenly rose in front of the figure, and Rasengan pressed on the light curtain but could not move an inch. At the same time, Naruto felt that the chakra in Rasengan was being continuously sucked away. Immediately, Naruto withdrew chakra directly to prevent him from being absorbed further. However, during the time he was stopped, Heavenly Path's abilities were already available again. Aiming at Naruto's body, Heavenly Path sneered and raised his arm. Bansho Tenon Universal Pull. In an instant, Naruto felt a strong suction, even he couldn't resist it, and his body was sucked right away. However, just as Heavenly Path stretched out a black stick from his sleeve, Naruto in front of him suddenly turned into a golden light and disappeared. The art of Hiraishin. Everyone was slightly surprised. The next moment Naruto had returned to Yugito's side, frowning slightly. It seems that no matter how fast you are, under the capture of the 6 pairs of eyes of Pain's 6 paths, you still can't kill it in one hit. It seems that you have to start with other people first. Boom. Hokage, who was blasted into the rubble, suddenly jumped out, his whole body thunder attribute chakra agitated, and the Thor armor was fully opened. The strength is really good. It seems that I have to be serious. Hokage flashed, came to Naruto, stared at Pain Six Paths and opened his mouth. No need, everyone is here. Naruto suddenly smiled and said. Huh. Reikage turned his head and saw several figures in his line of sight were rapidly approaching. In a few breaths, everyone has come to the back of the three Naruto. It was Kazekage, Mizukage, Tsuchikage, and their respective escorts, and Reikage's secretary, Sackcloth, and escorts. By Zuoyu Yugao also rushed over. Naruto, are you alright? Zuoyu stepped forward and asked. It's okay. Naruto shook his head. All eyes were on Pain Six Paths and the masked man. Are those eyes the legendary Rinnegan? The third-generation Tsuchikagenoki said with a shocked expression. I didn't expect the legendary Rinnegan to exist. HMPH. All of them came. Heavenly Path frowned slightly. Pain, everyone is here, we can't stay for a long time. Seeing that everyone had surrounded himself and others, the masked man said, don't delay the overall plan because of a trivial matter. Otherwise, all our efforts will be in vain. Now. Chapter 318 Escape. Naruto, what's going on with these guys? Those eyes. Zuoyu frowned slightly, looking at Pain Six Paths with a solemn expression. That's Rinnegan, the eyes that belong to the legendary Six Paths Immortal. Naruto said lightly, his ability is very powerful, you have to be careful. Oh, it seems that the sixth generation is young and knows a lot. Tsuchikage glanced at Naruto and chuckled. Naruto smiled slightly. I forgot to tell you just now that Rinnegan is Akatsuki's leader. Rinnegan's role in the extraction of tailed beasts is almost indispensable. If we keep him here, we can give Akatsuki a major blow. Everyone nodded. Gaara stood in front of Naruto and waved. Since we met here, don't even think about running away. Yeah, everyone, gather the power of our five shadows, and we will definitely take them down. Mizukage Terumi also stood up. Tsuchikage flew forward and smiled. Although I don't want to rely on young people, but in front of Rinnegan, you still have to be careful. Reikage exclaimed. Okay, let's go together, absolutely kill them. HMPH, a bunch of stupid guys. Heavenly Path suddenly stepped forward and sneered. Do you think the number of people is an advantage? Then let you experience the pain and despair. Heavenly Path suddenly jumped high. The figure was suspended in midair, and an invisible pressure radiated from him. This is. Naruto looked up, his expression changed slightly. It's so strong, I have an ominous feeling. Yugao frowned slightly. Looks like he's going to use some kind of dangerous technique. We have to stop him. Tsuchikage squinted at Pain, and the next moment he flew directly towards him. However, at this moment, a Hiraishin kunai flew straight over Tsuchikage towards Pain in midair, and Tsuchikage couldn't help but froze for a moment. In an instant, golden light flashed. Naruto's figure has already appeared in front of Heavenly Path. However, Heavenly Path just glanced at him, and the corner of his mouth moved slightly. Naruto screamed badly, just as he was about to use the Hiraishin technique to leave, but an incomparably powerful repulsion force slammed into his entire body. Boom! Immediately, Naruto was blasted down from the air by this powerful force, and his body smashed to the ground like a cannonball. If I knew about your Hiraishin technique, how could I have hit you a second time? Heavenly Path sneered. It turned out that Pain had already understood the difficulty of Naruto's Hiraishin technique after he escaped by using Bansho Tenin, Universal Pull, just now, so he deliberately lured Naruto up this time. And Naruto didn't expect him. When he saw that he was going to use a big move, he stepped forward to stop him. In fact, he was just deliberately seducing him. Naruto accidentally fell into his trap and was bounced off by Shinra Tensei, Almighty Push, who had been prepared for a long time. Naruto's body was shaken, but fortunately, his strength was tyrannical and his body was very tough, and he had already adjusted in the moment he was shaken. But at this moment, the other five Pains suddenly rushed towards Naruto who was flying down, and a black iron rod was inserted into Naruto's body fiercely in each of their hands. Naruto! Zuo-yu and the others couldn't help exclaiming when they saw this scene. Seeing the rapidly falling Naruto's body about to hit the opponent's sharp blade, his complexion changed greatly, and Chi-Chi rushed towards him. However, the corner of Naruto's mouth showed a slight arc. Just in time. The next moment, just when Naruto's body was about to be pierced, Naruto's body suddenly turned sharply in midair, stretched out his palms, grabbed two black sticks that stretched out to his chest, and pulled hard. The two figures were involuntarily pulled in front of them. Immediately afterwards, Naruto stretched out his hand and clenched his fist, and punched the two Pain who had not yet had time to make a defensive action. The golden light on the fist flickered, and an invisible wave of air burst out from Naruto's fist. The strength of chakra directly shocked the other three people, and their bodies suddenly seemed to be shooting stars. Smashed to the ground. Boom, boom. With two loud bangs, two huge potholes were smashed into the ground, the dust flew into the sky, a golden light flashed, and Naruto's figure had disappeared in front of the other three. The attack of the three was empty. And the two people who were smashed to the ground have been shattered. It is Shiradao and Animal Dao. Naruto, who was next to the three of Zuo-yu, was immediately hugged by the two women, Zuo-yu and Bai, and greeted him with concern. Are you all right? Naruto, are you injured? Let me check it out. It's all right, it's just that I accidentally suffered a little loss. It seems that I really can't underestimate any enemy. Naruto took a deep breath, although the chest still hurt a little, but in his own powerful self-healing in front of the ability and the power of life, it has quickly recovered. Really, Naruto, you are always charging like this without authorization, and you are very easy to encounter danger. Bai Weiwei said accusingly. Zuo-yu also breathed a sigh of relief, and said angrily, yes, it's already Hokage, and it's still so reckless. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. He was just worried about Pain's use of the Super Shinra Tensei Almighty Push sign, so he wanted to stop it, but he accidentally fell into his trap. But this is also exempted from the more serious problems in another sense. It's a big crisis, but I just suffered a little pain. After blowing up Naruto and losing two Pains, Heavenly Path has also initially figured out Naruto's strength. With his current state, he is indeed unbeatable. Therefore, after taking a look at the masked man, he prepared to leave with the other three. You go first, I'll break it here. The masked man nodded. Want to go? Jinten particle style, split detachment of the primitive world technique. At this moment, Tsuchikage on the side had already released the Nirvana hand seal, and saw an incomparably huge energy beam blasting towards Pain in midair. Shinra Tensei Almighty Push sign. Pain flicked his hand lightly, and Jinten particle style's power was instantly deflected. His figure also quickly retreated in midair, and the three Pains on the ground also disappeared into white smoke with a bang. Damn it! Don't even think about running away. Hokage let out a thunderous light and rushed out. But the masked man stepped aside and stopped in front of him. When Hokage's body passed through his body, he directly materialized and used Kamui. Swish! Under the rapid blink of an eye, Hokage managed to dodge this dangerous ninjutsu trick and had to step back. Damn it! Who the hell are you? Chapter 319 Battle of the Commanders. Ha ha ha! Are you asking me who I am? The masked man suddenly burst into laughter, and the strange Sharingan of the orangutan Yuhi radiated an extremely eerie light. I am Uchiha Madara. What? Uchiha Madara? Everyone was shocked. Impossible. How could Uchiha Madara live to this age? Tsuchikajinoki was the first to retort. Other people also recovered from the shock. Yes, Uchiha Madara was in the first generation period, and it is now about 100 years old. Except for some non-human monsters, who among the ninjas can live to be 100 years old. Haha. Actually, I'm just a body now. For some reason, my physical strength is running out. The masked man said lightly. Humph. Nonsense. Mizukage Terumime snorted coldly, and immediately used a ninjutsu with both hands hand seal, sweetened water style water iron cannon art. I saw her opening her mouth slightly, and in an instant, a torrent jetted out from her mouth, forming a large water Jinchuriki column that slammed into the masked man's body. But, unsurprisingly, the water Jinchuriki column passed through his body without any effect on him. Terumi couldn't help frowning at him. It's useless, any attack is useless to me. Now that you are all present, I will tell you some secrets. The masked man suddenly said. Everyone was watching him closely. The masked man smiled, and then slowly told everyone about his Moon Eye plan, as well as some legends about 10 Tails and 6 Paths Immortals. After everyone listened, Heavenly Path had already left, but everyone was shocked by his words, and no one paid any attention. Only Naruto frowned slightly and looked at the masked man, thinking secretly in his heart. The strength of the masked man is not to be feared. The most destructive Akatsuki should be Pain 6 Paths and Deidara, and these two can definitely play a major role in the battlefield. This time, they escaped because they were not careful. The trap of Heavenly Path, and next time, it will never be so easy. At this time, despite the hype that the masked man said, Naruto could only helplessly shake his head. His ability is very special. If he doesn't want to fight with him, he can't do anything about it. However, at least Yugito and Killer Bee were not taken away this time, which is the most fortunate thing. After the masked man said his plan, he coldly declared war to everyone. The fourth ninja war begins here. 5 great nations, in this battle, you will perish. Everyone looked surprised. Akatsuki dares to declare war on the entire ninja world. Beyond your own power, Hokage angrily exclaimed. Ha ha ha, then wait, the good show is yet to come. The masked man laughed. At this time, Naruto suddenly said, Madara. Let's call you that for now. I will stop all your so-called plans. I will end the war you call. As long as I am alive, I will not feel it. Let you act recklessly. Humph, Uzumaki Naruto, you must think of yourself too high. The masked man glanced at him and sneered. Don't forget that you are Kyuubi, 9 Tails, Jinchuriki, Column Force. Even yourself people who can't be guaranteed, what qualifications did they have to say such things? Unable to help themselves. Naruto couldn't help laughing. Indeed, if it was Naruto in the original book, it would be difficult for him to protect himself, but now, in terms of his own strength, even Heavenly Path Pain is not afraid of everyone. Under the natural mode, I have never experienced a hearty battle. Previous battle with Kyuubi, 9 Tails, was just a small fight. It seems that you are very confident, so let's wait and see. That's all for today, see you on the battlefield next time. The masked man snorted coldly, and the figure slowly disappeared into the space. After the masked man disappeared, a heavy pressure in the air did not dissipate for a long time. Because the words of the masked man have greatly exceeded everyone's imagination. Originally thought that after the meeting of the 5 shadows, everyone just formed some joint troops to fight against Akatsuki, but I didn't expect Akatsuki to directly declare war on the entire ninja world. This was a big surprise. Moreover, although everyone wondered what kind of cards the other party had to play against the 5 major countries, they did not dare to be careless. After all, Akatsuki even has Rinnegan, so it is not surprising that something strange happens. Okay, let's prepare for the war with all our strength. Let's continue the meeting to discuss. This war must be ended as soon as possible. Seeing everyone bowing their heads and contemplating, Naruto clapped his hands and said to everyone, the ninja village is full of talented people. Are you all afraid that a mere organization will fail? Humph, that's right, as the 5 major countries, you don't even have the confidence to face the challenge, so how can you stand in the ninja world? Hokage agreed. Continue the meeting. Terumi also laughed. Yeah, even though I hate war, our village of Kurigakure will not be afraid of any challenge. Besides, the chance that the 5 shadows can fight together is unique. When Gaara and Onoki heard the words, the corners of their mouths also evoked confident smiles, and they were very excited. In the next time, after arranging the medical ninja to treat Killer Bee for a while, Naruto and 4 shadows returned to Kumogakure village and continued the meeting just now. And this time, everyone has to discuss and formulate more content, not only how to crusade Akatsuki, but how to face this sudden declaration of war, and some discussions on forming a joint force. Different from the past, the previous ones were all wars between the 5 major countries, but this time everyone has a common enemy, but there are gaps between them, and it is indeed difficult to unite. Moreover, after discussing for a while, everyone started arguing about who is the supreme commander among the 5 shadows. First of all, Onoki wanted to be the commander-in-chief on the grounds that he had the most seniority. But it was immediately rejected by Reikage, because Iwagakure and Akatsuki also had some transactions, and Idara was also born in Iwagakure. Reikage immediately expressed distrust of him, saying, "Among Akatsuki, Orochimaru, Uchiha Itachi, all it is from Konoha village, Sasori of the Red Sand is also from Sand Ninja village, Kisame Hoshigaki is from Kurigakure, only Nikumogakure village has nothing to do with Akatsuki." Quote. Hearing this, Tsuchikage shook his head helplessly, unable to refute. He suddenly glanced at Naruto, Gaara, and Terumi-Mei, and asked back, "According to what you said in the 4th generation, the 6th generation Hokage and the 5th generation Kazekage are too young, and the 5th generation Mizukage is a female class. Are you the only one who can do the job here?" Chapter 320 Not interested. Reikage snorted, but said nothing, as if tacitly acknowledging what Tsuchikage said. "4th generation, it seems that you have a deep prejudice against us." Terumi-Mei smiled lightly, but there was a cold glow in her almond eyes. As a 5th generation Mizukage, she knew that both in terms of strength and strategy, she couldn't compare to everyone present, so she didn't think about arguing about it, but Tsuchikage's disdain for everyone and Reikage's distrust made her very unhappy. "Mizukage, this is just a fact. I heard that your village of Kurigakure is the source of the development of Akatsuki." Reikage sneered. Terumi-Mei's face changed slightly. Reikage was right. When the 4th generation of Mizukage was in power, he was controlled by a mysterious figure and single-handedly created the Age of Blood Fog. It was also in that extremely dark period that all kinds of darkness breed power. All of this, although he has changed it during his ascension, he is still criticized by outsiders. Snort. Terumi-Mei reluctantly stopped talking. The remaining Naruto and Gaara, because they are too young, although they are already the shadow of a village, in the eyes of the 3rd and 4th generations, they are still only juniors. Gaara is not interested in this power struggle, and just said lightly, "I have reservations." So, in the end, only Naruto became the focus of attention of those present. Reikage stared at Naruto with burning eyes, thinking about his deeds in his heart, talking about the conversation. Everyone has only heard some very exaggerated rumors about this newly emerging 6th generation Hokage of Konoha, and it was not until today that we saw Naruto. The strength shown by the person when he shot, has some general understanding of him. The Hiraishin technique and time-space ninjutsu are very similar to the 4th generation of Hokage Namikaze Minato. As a former opponent, Reikage has already guessed something in his heart, the golden hair, the flash of light in that moment, and the surname Uzumaki, all of which have been its obvious. Moreover, the rumored Naruto in the ninja world will also use the Mokuton, wood-style technique. This belongs to the 1st generation of ninjutsu that pacified the world and appeared on him. Does this also indicate something? In short, in Reikage's eyes, Naruto's strength is unfathomable and impossible to see through, and the strength that he inadvertently shows is far beyond everyone's imagination. Therefore, among the 5 shadows, the one that Reikage is most afraid of can only be Naruto. However, the more incomprehensible Naruto is, the less Reikage does not want to give up the position of commander-in-chief to him. He has already lost to his former opponent, the 4 generations of Hokage. If even his descendants can easily compare him, he is really in his heart. It's so unhappy. Naruto didn't know all of Reikage's thoughts, and he didn't want to know. He didn't have any interest in the position of Supreme Commander. On the battlefield, strength was the foundation of his speech. He who has read the original book knows that in front of absolute strength, 5 shadows, ninja allied forces, It's all just cannon fodder. In the end, the real main force still relies on the highest end power. 6 generations of eyes, what do you think? At this time, Reikage finally threw the question to Naruto. Seeing Reikage, SAWE inspiring appearance, Naruto smiled lightly. I have no interest in the position of commander. Since you think that the other 4 shadows are not qualified, you can take it. As soon as Naruto's words came out, everyone was stunned for a moment. Reikage suddenly felt like he was punched in the air. Looking at the indifferent smile on his face, he found that he couldn't see what he was thinking at all. Huh, why are you not interested in the position of commander of the 6th generation Hokage? If you want to be the one, I will be the first to support you. Tsurumi couldn't help but said. Vixen. Zuo glared at her and muttered to herself. As if Tsurumi didn't hear it, she continued to pretend to be disappointed and sighed. The 6th generation of Hokage is so young, and the strength is at the top level among us. It's a pity to not be the commander. Naruto glanced at her slightly, although he didn't know why she had to stand up for him, but he didn't care about it. Tsurumi's mind was too hard to guess, and he didn't want to waste his energy. Okay, since that's the case, the 4th generation Reikage will be the commander-in-chief, and this meeting is over. Let's prepare for the battle next. The combined army must be formed within 3 days. Onoki announced with a wave of his arms. The 5 Shadows Conference has come to an end here, and then entered the 10th stage of preparations for the war. Each of the 5 Shadows sent messages to the village, arranged everything, and sent village chuniners to the Kumogakure village headquarters within 3 days. Naruto used the technique of Hiraishin to fly back to Konoha directly. After telling Tsunade everything, he held an internal meeting and arranged the affairs of the joint force directly. It wasn't until the evening that the tense meeting was over. Naruto stretched out of the conference room and came to the rooftop to watch the evening sun. Naruto. At this moment, 2 soft footsteps suddenly approached. Naruto turned his head and saw Tsunade and Shizune with a slight smile on his face. The 2 women came to Naruto and watched the sunset with him, Shizune quietly leaning on his shoulder. After a while, Tsunade suddenly sighed. War is coming. Naruto turned his head and glanced at her, and saw that her pretty face, as white as jade, looked particularly attractive and beautiful under the setting sun, but there was a hint of sadness on it, and her frowning eyebrows looked particularly heart-wrenching. Yeah, war will always bring pain, so we must end it as soon as possible. Naruto nodded, no longer looking at her. His eyes drifted to the distant horizon, and slowly said. At this time, Tsunade has changed from her usual strength. She seems to have become fragile. She has experienced too much. Her heart has already become vicissitudes, but Tsunade at this moment also makes people feel a desire to protect. However, there will always be casualties in war. Akatsuki is now aiming at the power of Jinchuriki column with all his strength. Naruto, you must be very careful. Tsunade turned to look at Naruto's profile with concern on his face. Naruto showed her a bright smile. Don't worry, I will never die easily. Yeah, Naruto, you have to promise me that nothing will happen. It must be, Tsunade murmured. In Tsunade's heart, Naruto occupies a very special position. If something happened to Naruto on the battlefield, then she will definitely lose all confidence in life. She has lost so much that she really can no longer lose it. Naruto,